What's up, everybody? It's Clark here for the BOS Sports Podcast. Today, doing a full preview of all 30 Major League Baseball teams ahead of opening day, March 27th, 2025 of MLB's regular season. Been watching a lot of games last few weeks here in spring training, getting excited for regular season, and as well have compiled the stats for all key players for each team's an effort to paint a picture of how the season will look and what to look forward to, what to be excited about for each team, and what to potentially dread as well. As well, today, posted online, BOS Sports full prediction this season, division standings, division winners, even went as far as going into the postseason, which is pretty dubious looking at being so many months away. A lot of things will happen between now and then. I think in the NL, things look pretty clear already. I think between the three division leaders, the Dodgers, the Brewers, and the Braves, they all have so much. It's hard to see them not being a part of the playoff pictures, if not the division winners, and exactly where I put them in the standings. The Dodgers will have a little bit of uphill battles with their pitching and effort to keep them healthy. Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, Yoshino Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki, all healthy for October. Of course, Clayton Kershaw, Dustin May will be in the mix there for the Dodgers. But here, coming back to spring training, looking at how all the teams look now, and we have a lot to look forward to here in this 2025 season. As well, the postseason picture for the American League, things are a little bit more dicey there. Where it gets the American League, there's a lot of things that could potentially go right and wrong for each team, each playoff contender. Here in the 2025 season, you got the Blue Jays. They've got a great bullpen. They've got some starting pitching pieces, including Max Scherzer coming in the season. Their offense appears to be on the uptick this year. Looking at them potentially being a wild card team and being in playoffs this year, finishing high in the American League East. But things potentially go bad for them. Of course, they did last year, and they missed the playoffs. And that could be the scenario with so many teams. The Astros, who are now without Alex Bregman, as well. The Red Sox, they added this offseason with Garrett Crochet. And, of course, Alex Bregman, aforementioned just a second ago. And teams like the Detroit Tigers, where they have a ton of pitching, but just not much offense. They're kind of like the Pittsburgh Pirates in a way. They're two teams that are not too far away geographically as well. They're very similar. The Pittsburgh Pirates have a lot of pitching this year, but not a lot of offense. And that's where things get a little bit more clear in the National League as American League. Tigers, they do have some young players with some upside. They could potentially have a hot year and make the playoffs, where in the National League, the potential for Pirates young players such as Key Brian Hayes do not look quite as promising right now after the spring training. But, of course, spring training numbers are not the Bible. They do not mean a whole bunch. Spring training stats, I wrote a little bit of a limerick, I guess you call it a short poem or so. They're not completely meaningless nor meaningful, our spring training stats for Major League Baseball. As Braves fans, we know... Of course, I'm a Braves fan wearing the Spencer Strider jersey here. A recent example for us is in 2023, a lot of our players ahead of that season were very hot there. And of course, that translated record-setting offense there for the Braves in 2023. But that isn't always the case, especially so with pitching, as well as as far as having success in spring training and then that translating to the season. One season's a long time, and pitching, of course, a lot of injury problems potential to happen. So as we look at these stats here in today's episode, they are not to be ignored, but the 2 points of reference that we will use is how these players look and how they perform in key situations, how they command the bats as hitters, as well as how successful pitchers are at executing their strengths, whether it be swing and miss stuff or executing with weak command and outs. And between these factors as well as their statistics, we can start to get somewhat of a picture. We see pitchers like Freddie Peralta, perennial all-star candidate there for the Brewers. He struggled some with a spring with an ERA 8 over 7, but we'll see very shortly Thursday how he looks. Imagine that he'll be sharp coming into opening day. So we're going to start off this 30-team preview, the entire league, Major League Baseball here, with the American League Central. We got the Royals. They just acquired Jonathan India in this offseason, as well as Michael Garcia is a part of that team. And Bobby Witt Jr., they're all hot in spring training so far. Vinny Pasquale Jr., he's got a tough spring so far. Salvador Perez, he's got modest spring, but he's a veteran, not worried about his numbers, especially with Jonathan India coming in and hitting hot for the Royals. They're all swinging hot bat. Bobby Witt, Michael Garcia, Jonathan India. And puts a little bit less pressure on Salvador Perez, and adding him to this Royals offense would be a cherry on top kind of scenario. As we've seen him in past years be key part of Royals offense, of course, being the MVP from their 2015 World Series championship for the Kansas City Royals, as well as Hunter Renfroe. They're out in their outfield. Hunter Renfroe out there in the outfield. He's having a nice spring. Kyle Isbell, he's struggling this spring. Well, it'll be an interesting name to watch there for the Royals. He had a pretty decent season last year. Joey Weimar, he's having a great spring. If this trend continues, we'd see Weimar usurp Isbell potentially at that center field position and potentially work things out there in the outfield. Of course, outfielders are a little bit injury prone as well. There'll be some days off for players and regulars out there in the outfield for the Royals. Their opening day starter for the Kansas City Royals is Cole Reagans. And currently coming into Tuesday's action, he had 8.2 ERA with 22 strikeouts and a 2.04 whip. And that's where things start getting dicey for the Royals, as this rotation, it looked solid last year for the Royals with Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, Chris Bubich. But coming into Tuesday's action as well for the final game, they all had an ERA well above 5 as well. As well have Michael Lorenzen, who's fared the best so far with 4.20 ERA coming into Tuesday's action. All of today's stats in this episode, they're current before the last game this season. Could not put together all those stats and do this episode so quickly after the last day. A lot of pitchers pitched, but a lot of the position players, they came out pretty early, as we saw in today's Braves game versus Cubs. Seth Lugo. So back here to the Royals. Michael Lorenzen, 4.20 ERA this spring with 8 strikeouts and 1.2 whip and 15 innings pitched. He's fared the best so far. So the Royals have some starting pitcher concerns from spring training. We'll see if those concerns linger into the regular season, as it'll be key for this Kansas City Royals team. They certainly have one of the best offenses in the division as far as potentially to win it, the division, but concern about their starting rotation. So the Cleveland Guardians, they were, of course, the division winners for the American League last year. Tanner Bybee, ace for the Cleveland Guardians. He's looked sharp this spring. Gavin Williams, been lively, doing nice too. Gavin, a 2.2 ERA, 25 strikeouts, 0.98 whip, and 16.1 innings pitched. Tristan McKenzie, only 12 innings pitched so far, struggling with a 7.5 ERA for the Guardians, 1.83 whip. But this Cleveland Guardians team, they have a very deep starting potential. They're very deep in the starting pitcher position here. Of course, Tristan McKenzie, aforementioned, he's struggling a little bit this spring for the Guardians, but not as much as Luis Ortiz, as he has 11.66 ERA and 14.2 innings pitched, 2.05 whip. I think what to take away from this is the Guardians, they have a very solid, stalwart top 3 in their rotation. Tanner Bybee, Gavin Williams, Ben Lively. Looking at Tristan McKenzie, Luis Ortiz to step up. Logan Allen as well, they have and the rotation possibilities. He's had a very nice spring so far, 1.89, 19 strikeouts, 1.05 whip. So it's just putting together the 5 starters there for the Guardians, as they have 4 very stalwart possibilities coming out of spring training. And just looking at that 5th one now. Moving some hardware here. So Emmanuel Clase going the Guardians bullpen. Not great spring training numbers, but not worried about him at all as veteran. And of course, his stuff is just incredible. Unless he's injured any kind of way. The spring training, his stats are 6.75 ERA, 9 strikeouts, 2.06 whip, and 5 innings pitched. Paul Sewald, journeyman, now in the Guardians. Interesting development. Of course, talked about in this BOS Sports podcast in previous episodes, previewing the Braves, as the Braves have a lefty prospect, Hayden Harris, who throws invisible fastball. Similar to Paul Sewald, but of course, Hayden Harris is a lefty and Paul Sewald is a righty. So the bullpen for the Guardians, going back to the Guardians here, they're all struggling. Not quite the same pitching monster this year are the Guardians potentially there in that bullpen. But Sewald's still there as well. They replaced Josh Naylor at first base. Carlos Santana. We're probably going to be looking at Kyle Manzardo, their dazzling first baseman prospect. He's listed right now at DH, but he plays some first base. I imagine he'll eventually transition there to first base if he's not starting day first baseman. They'll probably DH Carlos Santana. He's currently not faring very well as Santana. He's having an awful spring, and it doesn't look great for the Guardians now, as Josh Naylor is absolutely mashing there for the Diamondbacks. But that's a potential for this roster to upgrade at deadline. The rest of the Guardians, they got a nice offense with Stephen Kwan, a .354 average a spring, doing his thing at the plate, and he stay healthy. Vanesky Noel, potential breakout season, having a nice spring with .327 average, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, .836 OPS. Not much hits with runners in scoring position. Of course, having 3 home runs and 6 RBIs. Not going to comment on the White Sox there. Did not put together a White Sox take, so I guess I previewed 29 teams today because put together everyone else. Twins, moving on, the Twins. So the Guardians, they've got a solid starting rotation there. They've got some bullpen pieces. Some of the key ones are struggling. But look for Manuel Clase to bounce back here, open this spring. They probably have the best balance overall of pitching and offense. Is why I have them winning the AL Central again this year. But 2 teams to look out for me for the AL Central and getting down later in this list are, of course, the Tigers and the Royals. Just covered just a second ago. The Royals have potent offense. Can that starting pitching rotation shape up? The Detroit Tigers, they're absolutely loaded with pitching. Some of their starting candidates have struggled this spring. Of course, not their key names, but their big question is offense, as they've really struggled as well on offense this spring. But next here, we're about to talk about the Twins. Main guys, Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan struggling, Bailey Ober, nice spring, 1.59 ERA, 15K, 1.18 whip. Chris Paddock, Simeon Woods Richardson, ERAs over 4 for the Twins. So the rotation is not looking very good right now for the Twins, with Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan struggling. Bailey Ober is the only one looking decent in the spring. 15 strikeouts, 1.1 whip, and of course the aforementioned 1.59 ERA for the Twins. Joe Andran as well, their star reliever. He's shown a slow start to the spring, but his ERA has already gone down to 3.68 as he's trending upwards. We're likely to see this same nasty Joe Andran we've come to know as long as he's healthy this season. That's probably a key stat to any baseball player performing well is, of course, the health stat as well. So Jorge Alcala as well as Griffin Jacks, they're having nice springs out of their bullpen as well. With Griffin Jacks being scoreless so far this spring with 9 strikeouts coming into Tuesday. Haven't checked Tuesday scores yet. 0.8 whip. And new Twins, Downey Collum, struggling with an ERA over 6 after coming over from the Orioles. I had him as someone I'd like for the Braves, and he's struggling so far in spring, so that looks like it was a bad idea. As a player to watch out for the Twins there. They got some good things going on in their pitching. It just, I mean, you have the Tigers there with that stellar rotation and a pretty good bullpen as well. And then you have that Royals team with the stellar offense. Then you have that Cleveland Guardians team they have some holes and some players struggling a bit, but they have a pretty good mix of both. So Byron Buxton, watching for him to have comeback player of the year potential with a nice spring as well coming into Tuesday's game. 306 average, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, 950 OPS this spring. Carlos Correa, absolute disaster this spring training. Reason for concern for Carlos Correa for the Twins. 103 average, 337 OPS. Royce Lewis is hurt again. He was hurt to start last season. I know because I had him on my fantasy team. Ty France, nice spring. 439 average for Ty France. 2 home runs, 9 RBIs coming into Tuesday's game. 1.185 OPS. Outside of those guys, nothing right home about the Twins. They have quite a bit of struggles offensively. They have quite a bit of struggles everywhere else on their roster. A few pieces there in the bullpen, and hopefully their starters overall can turn around. Tigers, aforementioned, they're a team to watch out for in this AL Central as potential winner. They, of course, have the pitching to do it. The only question is, can they score? I look at them, compare them to the Pirates. I would not say they're as quite in a dubious situation offensively as the Pirates. More upside potential, I'd say, with this Tigers team. And enough if they ride out and develop well, trend upwards, and they're hitting, they could potentially be a World Series contender this year. Detroit Tigers, in addition to being AL Central contender. So, of course, they have their stellar rotation headlined by Tyreek Skubal, Reese Olson, Jack Flaherty. Alex Cobb is on his way back from a hip injury. He might not be on the opening day roster, but all of them have been stalwart and stellar this spring. With upshot prospect Jackson Jobe, I believe he is announced being the 5th starter for the Detroit Tigers the other day. And he has a 3.65 ERA this spring with 8 Ks, 0.89 WHIP, as he's performed nicely for the Detroit Tigers. So absolutely stellar rotation, of course, as Braves fans. We saw Reese Olson just the other day pitch versus the Braves and get most of our guys out. The bullpen, they have a lot of nice names, but some are struggling and a few who aren't. Brennan Hanafy is ERA. Tommy Naily, not struggling as much with a 4.91 ERA, 4 Ks. John Brebbia, he has 2.45 ERA, 7 Ks, 1.36 WHIP, performing pretty well out of the Detroit Tigers bullpen. So they have a great starting rotation. Their bullpen, they've got a few nice names, but they're a little bit thin there. And for a team that's going to struggle scoring runs, a little bit tough to see them winning the division, having enough wins to win the division. But who knows? Maybe they're too loaded there in that starting rotation. Afford to get one of those guys in the pen. Always risky to do, of course, health-wise. Maybe they trade for someone. Less likely, I'd think. Or maybe a few guys step up and they have a nice year out of the bullpen. The offense is the real concern here, aforementioned for Detroit Tigers, as Spencer Torkelson, 326 average, 4 home runs, 9 RBIs, 989 OPS this spring. Nice spring numbers. And no one else is really having a very nice spring. Javier Baez, he started out hot and has cooled off. And they've got a lot of players there that Justin Henry Malloy, he's just not been hitting well this spring. But who knows, maybe they'll flip a switch and things will change for this Detroit Tigers team going into the season, as that is their key, is hitting, not only winning their division, but potentially being a threat in the playoffs. Of course, they have all the pitching to it. Just can their hitters develop consistency there in the box for the Tigers? Mariners are a team I really liked last year. They had such great pitching. George Kirby was absolutely shoving for early last season. And I was hoping they'd swing for a big bat, the deadline. Of course, they did. They added Randy Arozarena, who, of course, had struggles last season. This spring, he's turned around. Looking for him to have a turnaround season here for the Mariners on his new team. So we're going to pause really quick for station identification. This is the BOS Sports Podcast. They added, of course, Justin Turner as well at the line last year. But I was really hoping that they'd swing even bigger and get Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Just imagine him in that lineup. Of course, they had struggles with Mitch Gardner there at the plate last season, and their other first baseman as well. So I felt like Vladdy Jr. would be an interesting team for them. Of course, they just extended Cal Raleigh today. Money might be running a little bit short for Vladdy Jr. next season. But they could be a threat to the Braves, signing Marcell Ozuna there, as they could potentially look at that kind of contract. Vladdy will probably be going for a lot more than Marcell, even if they have similar numbers. Of course, there's age difference as well. Vladdy being a first baseman as well. So George Kirby, aforementioned, he was one of their best pitchers last season. I'd compare him a little bit to Walker Buehler, and that comparison is a little bit too true, at least injury-wise, as he's been shut down with shoulder inflammation. Huge concern there for the Mariners. Although Luis Castillo, Brian Wu, and Bryce Miller, they've all had nice springs. Not hugely impressive numbers, but a sleeper to potentially be a huge force. Brian Wu, 0.92 whip, 15 strikeouts, and 2.25 ERA. Bryce Miller, a 3.77 ERA, but with 17 Ks, 0.91 whip. Andres Munoz, pedestrian spring, but not bad numbers. 3.86 ERA, 1.29 whip, 7 Ks for Mariners. We'll see if he turns it on when the season starts. Bullpen is fairly thin as well. Gregory Santos, nice in spring training, but limited action. Matt Brash is out. All the rest have an ERA over 4.7. As Mariners bullpen was quite stalwart last year. So if that falls off, and of course they were not a playoff team last year, that'll be another thing for another challenge for them to overcome. Most as their offense was their key weakness last year. Most of their lineup is mashing, including the players I thought they should have usurped with a potential Christian Walker, Paul Goldschmidt signing, Mitch Gardner, who struggled last year, potential turnaround season this year, a 303 average of the plate this spring with 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, 976 OPS. Cal Raleigh, 5 home runs, a 193 average, 19 RBIs. Luke Raley, the person I was trying to think of a minute ago, who I thought they potentially be a good idea to replace Vladdy Jr. He had 302 average this spring. Does Luke Raley? No home runs. That's a little bit important for T-Mobile Park there, coming in 2 days games. Dylan Moore for the Mariners struggling, 136 average, 458 OPS this spring, 1 home run, 2 RBIs. Jorge Polanco looking strong for the Mariners this spring, 324 average, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, 991 OPS. J.P. Crawford, 273 average, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, 843 OPS this spring. Randy Arozarena, comeback player of the year watch, with 350 average, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs, 948 OPS. I don't think he did bad enough, or he wasn't injured enough last season to be a C-Full-A candidate. Unless he absolutely goes off. I don't know. Sometimes they give those comeback players of the year or most improved player, such as the NBA, to players like NBA. I'd give a good example. They're talking about giving Cade Cunningham the most improved player. He's a tick or two away from being MVP candidate. A similar situation happens in Major League Baseball. If Randy Arozarena is tick or two away from MVP there, potentially be a C-Ploy candidate, but he didn't have quite bad enough of a season last season for him to be quite a comeback player of the year candidate, I don't think. Arozarena. So Julio Rodriguez as well for the Mariners, 222 average, but with 5 home runs, 20 RBIs this spring. But nice OPS, 879 this spring. Looking for J-Rod to have some powerful numbers there for the Mariners this year. Victor Robles, who's having a nice spring, 283 average, 3 home run, 9 RBIs, 835 OPS. Going to the Houston Astros. I believe I picked the Astros to win the AL West there in the BOS season preview, if I remember the graphic that I put together over the last few days correctly. Perennial winner, can they do it again? After trading away Kyle Tucker. Well, of course, Kyle Tucker has really struggled this spring for the Cubs, as the Cubs have a lot of concerns. But so is Yordan Alvarez for the Houston Astros, with 147 average this spring coming in Tuesday, 1 home run, 4 RBIs. Something to look out for. Isaac Paredes really struggling. Coming over for the Cubs for Kyle Tucker, 188 average, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, but with a decent .708 OPS, as Isaac Paredes will always be decent at getting on base, no matter how bad his numbers get. Jeremy Pena, absolutely mashing this spring. MVP potential season for Jeremy Pena out of the Astros. And a bit why I have him as the Astros as division winners, as you have Jeremy Pena playing at MVP level. All you really need is a couple of your star players, Yordan Alvarez or Isaac Paredes or Jose Altuve, shaping back into all-star form, and suddenly you have quite by far one of the better teams there in the American League. So, speaking of Jose Altuve, 184 average, 1 home run, 5 RBIs, .598 OPS, struggling this spring. He needs to turn around. Jake Myers, potential breakout season for Jake Myers with a nice spring, 306 average, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs, 935 OPS. If I remember correctly, I believe Jose Altuve, he had a slow start to spring last year, and that did not translate to the 2024 season. Watching for that to happen again, if my memory serves me correctly for this year. So Ronel Blanco, after his dazzling debut in MLB, of course, his headline in Major League Baseball in his debuts. And this spring, coming into Tuesday's games, had an 8.44 ERA with 2.25 WHIP and 12 strikeouts. As well, their starting rotation: Framber Valdez, Spencer Arguetti, Luis Garcia. Some decent numbers, mid 3+ ERAs this spring. Hunter Brown with some struggles, 5.25 ERA, but with 13 strikeouts and 1.75 WHIP. So some rotation concerns for the Astros. They have their front three: Valdez, Spencer Arguetti, Luis Garcia, and they kind of need to figure out their 4 and 5: Ronel Blanco and Hunter Brown. Josh Hader. Now their bullpen, the spring, 4.05 ERA, 1.5 WHIP, 5 strikeouts. Rest of the bullpen, except for Brian Abreu, really struggling. Not sure why I picked them to win the AL Central this spring. Or the AL West. I guess just lack of confidence in this Mariners team and the Rangers team to just get it done over the hump as well. The Rangers, they have a lot of struggles in their bullpen as well. 2 of their top pitchers in their bullpen are Jacob Webb and Luke Jackson. As a Braves fan, I look at that Rangers bullpen and I think, not much there. So, just hard to see the Rangers or Mariners taking over this AL West. Angels, they have too many problems. They have a huge hole there at third base, defense. And we just saw them the other day playing the Braves, and they just look completely sloppy. We'll get to the Angels here in a minute. But going back here, next team I have queued up here as the Arlington Rangers. And of course, they have their big starting 3, Nathan Eovaldi, Jacob deGrom. He's coming back looking sharp. He had that UCL brace, internal UCL brace surgery procedure, that Spencer Strider and Shohei Ohtani, as well as pitcher for the Rays, Rasmussen. I believe his first name is Drew Rasmussen. Last name is definitely Rasmussen. They all had the internal UCL brace, pioneered by Dr. Keith Meister. He's been a busy man recently, fixing elbows. And so Jacob deGrom, he had that same procedure. And they've all looked strong this spring. That UCL brace procedure by Dr. Keith Meister appears to be a winner so far. So John Gray, he went down the other day after a line drive fractured his wrist. Big blow for the Texas Rangers. As well, Cody Bradford out with pitching elbow soreness. Highly concerning for the Rangers. Potential disaster scenario already in Texas Rangers camp with their starting pitchers, with John Gray down with fractured wrist, and Cody Bradford out, currently announced with elbow soreness, pitching elbow soreness, but that's never good news. Tyler Mahle, he's had a strong spring, 3.21 ERA, 12K, 1 whip. Aforementioned, their bullpen is very thin. It features Jacob Webb, and Luke Jackson, who is DFA'd by, I believe, both. Maybe not DFA. He was very close to it if he was not DFA'd last season. And he's a key part of that Rangers opening day bullpen depth. Although he's had a very strong string, potential bounce back year for Luke Jackson is coming into Tuesday's games. He had a scoreless spring with 7 strikeouts, a 6 whip. Jacob Webb not faring as well with a 5.59 ERA, 1.24 whip. Robert Garcia out of the Rangers bullpen. He's been scoreless spring, looking really good with 4 strikeouts, a 0.63 whip. And former Brave Chris Martin, 1.8 ERA, 5K, 0.4 whip. As the rest of their bullpen has ERA over 4. So Texas Rangers, they got some nice pitching there. I could definitely see the Rangers winning the division over the Astros this season, who I picked. What could have been for the Rangers this season, though, with John Gray and Cody Bradford out, the rotation is a little bit more murky. You're going to have to rely on Nathan Eovaldi and Jacob deGrom a little bit more. Jock Peterson, of course, signed a key acquisition by the Texas Rangers this offseason. After bashing for the Diamondbacks last season in spring training, he's got a nice .265 average coming into Tuesday's games. 4 home runs, 12 RBIs, 1.03 OPS, including a homer Monday and the Rangers win. Jonah Heim, he struggled at the plate with a 176 average, no home runs, 1 RBI, .451 OPS. Jake Berger not doing too great. 2 home runs, 226 average. Nice hit in today's game versus the Royals, but I've always been positive on this player. We'll see if he figures it out at some point. Marcus Semien struggling. 2 home runs, 4 RBI, but he's veteran, not quite as worried about him and his struggles in spring training. I think he'll produce as long as he's healthy. Josh Dung, he's the young potential star third baseman there for the Rangers. He's had some struggles last year, as well struggling this year in spring training. And now he's day-to-day with a fractured wrist after being hit by a pitch. He's expected to be back, not injured for too long, but prior to that, he was hitting .208 with 1 home run, 1 RBI, 622 OPS. Corey Seager, he's already day-to-day as well, injured with a sore calf. Nice spring before that. .250 average, 3 home runs, 11 RBI, 950 OPS. As long as he's healthy, he'll produce. Of course, that's always a question for Corey Seager. All right, Wyatt Langford, 481 average, 2 home runs, 7 RBI, 1.363 OPS. Evan Carter, tough spring, announced that he would start the year in the minor leagues. Now will not be on the opening day roster. Adolis Garcia for the Rangers, 267 average, 3 home runs, 11 RBI, 839 OPS. Not huge numbers, but as a vet, expect him to produce at a high level as long as he's healthy. The Rangers had nice pitching. Rangers had nice offense and pitching staff coming into the year. John Gray and Cody Bradford injuries really hurt. Without them, they couldn't have had nice depth, I feel like, to win the division. I think they will contend for a wild card spot and be a force in the postseason with John Gray coming back at some point. Oakland A's. No longer the Oakland A's, now the Sacramento baseball team. Their starting pitchers, they all have an ERA well over 4. I said I wouldn't do the White Sox, but I'm doing the A's to not make it make sense. JP Sears, he's having a nice spring, though, with a 3.63 ERA, starting pitcher there for the Oakland, Sacramento baseball team. 14 strikeouts, 1.33 whip. Newly signed Luis Severino, 4.4 ERA. He has 13 strikeouts, 1.33 whip this string. Mason Miller, their star closer, healthy and shoving the spring. As long as he's healthy, he'll be a force. Honestly, MLB should course A's to trade him because there's no reason to have that much talent wasted there on the A's. The Braves would be a nice suitor for him, especially after the draft, after they got the extra draft pick from the qualifying offer for Max Fried going to the Yankees. The Braves will have a lot of draft capital, a lot of drafted players this year, a lot of players to send to that Oakland team for them to get ready for their Las Vegas tenure. MLB can help make that happen. Anyways, so moving on to the Angels, Jack Kochanowicz and Kyle Hendricks, they've been having nice springs. Tyler Anderson, he's not very good at pitching, not been having very much success, I should say. Jose Soriano, UC Kikuchi, newly signed UC Kikuchi after coming over from the Blue Jays. They've had some decent springs. They'll have a solid year. They'll win some games. Kenley Jansen installed as closer. He's had some decent numbers, 3.6 ERA, only 2 strikeouts so far, 1.6 whip. He still has the stuff to do it, still has the stuff to get outs. But how does Kenley Jansen hold base runners in this new rules with his pitching delivery? That's a question I'm not sure has been answered yet. And that's really key for this Angels team, as they're going to be in a lot of close games, and having blown saves is just going to be deflating. And part of why I have this Angels team finishing 4th in the division this year. Rest of their bullpen is solid. Angel Perdomo, he was traded from the Braves to Angels along with Ian Anderson. Ben Joyce is there as well out of the bullpen. Key young players, Chanel, Rengifo, Nito, Joe Adele, all struggling this spring at the plate. They got no offense, except for Mike Trout and Jorge Soler. They're solid veterans. Hate to advocate for anything for the Phillies, but it'd be cool to see Mike Trout go to the Phillies. Angels, they don't have much offense. They don't have much of a bullpen. They got a few starting pitchers. They'll be a little bit better than the Athletics this year, but not by a whole lot. So, moving on, AL East. And looking at the Orioles this season, I think they'll be having a very interesting year. Of course, as announced that, announced they signed Charlie Morton, former Braves, this season. As well, they got Zach Eflin on the team this year. This spring, they have a 5.4 and 3.3 ERA. Grayson Rodriguez is supposed to be on the way back. Looking a little bit dicey now. Dean Kramer, 7.27 ERA. Tomoyuki Sugano, surprising 15 innings pitched, 15 strikeouts, 1.07 whip, 3 ERA. Nothing outstanding for the Orioles and the starting pitching department. A little bit why they've struggled in the postseason as well, their last few years, their last few chances. As well, they lost Anthony Santander and replaced him with Tyler O'Neill there in the outfield. So the Orioles overall have gone backwards talent-wise, it appears, in the offseason, especially in the pitching department. And as well, some of the young stars are struggling a little bit this year. They might have an off year, Orioles, and that's why I placed them to finish 4th in the AL East. Shocker pick, finishing only over the Rays. I think it'll be a bit of a struggle year for the Orioles. They'll turn around, hopefully acquire some new pieces in pitching and trades and draft, and have some prospects come up, as they need long-term answers there at that pitching position starting rotation. Give these young stars, Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holliday, Adley Rutschman, all a chance. Tyler O'Neill in the mix now. I think he has some opt-outs in his contract, though. You got a nice little young core there, hitters there. They're star infielders, but outside of that, they've got some question marks going forward. Ryan Mountcastle, he's been having a huge spring. Before we get to Ryan Mountcastle, they've got some decent bullpen arms. Yainer Cano is having a nice spring. Sir Anthony Dominguez, huge struggle. Coming in Tuesday's game, he had 19.5 ERA. So going back to Ryan Mountcastle, 302 average, 5 home runs, 14 RBIs a spring. He's been huge. Adley Rutschman, MVP watch, 357 average, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, 1.033 OPS. Well, Jackson Holliday finally break out. He's had a nice spring. 333 average, 1 home run, 4 RBIs, 865 OPS. Gunnar Henderson, he's really struggled this spring. Might be skinned the season on the IL with his spring training struggles. Newly signed Oriole Tyler O'Neill, 310 average, 1 home run, 4 RBI, 858 OPS, 29 OBs. So they'll win a lot of games. The AL East, it'll be a close division again this year. They'll put up a lot of runs. They'll win a lot of games. Could the AL East have 4 teams in the playoffs this year? I think that's an interesting question to think about. Very possible. I think it'd be the first time it's ever happened with the AL West and AL Central. Of course, just reviewing them, they're pretty tight as well, but each of their teams have flaws. Potential for a disaster season with the Royals, all their pitching problems, and second place teams such as that all have problems like that themselves. Potential second place teams as well, such as the Tigers there. See them finishing second in the AL Central. Of course, with no offense, virtually no offense, how are they going to score? AL West, you got the Astros and Rangers. I could see them both making the playoffs. Oh. Moving on to the Red Sox, I have them going to the World Series this year. They traded for Garrett Crochet in the offseason. He's looked superb. 0.57 ERA, 15.2 innings pitched, 30 strikeouts, 1.34 whip. They finally have that ace starting pitcher as they've missed. Tanner, don't tell Red Sox fans that they could have had one last year if they didn't trade Chris Sale. Tanner Houck struggle this season. Spring training, 7.2 ERA, 2.49 whip. Walker Buehler coming over from the Dodgers to the Red Sox, looking strong this spring, 1.8 ERA, 10 innings pitched. Another off-season acquisition, of course, for the Red Sox. Brian Bayo, somewhat of a mystery for the Red Sox. Always thought he would trend into a stalwart starting pitcher. He hasn't pitched this spring, but he's projected to make an April debut. Lucas Giolito, he's 18 ERA the spring training as well. He injured his hamstring after pitching 1 inning early this spring. Cutter Crawford, Taylor tendon soreness, unlikely to be on the opening day roster. Richard Fitz, nice spring training, ERA 2.45, 14.2 innings pitched, 14 strikeout, 1.3 whip. Cooper Criswell, solid numbers, a little bit high ERA, 4.66, 9.2 innings pitched, 1.66 whip, 10 strikeouts. I believe the Braves faced him this spring, and we can see he can be effective. So the Red Sox, they have Garrett Crochet, Walker Buehler, Brian Bayo, Richard Fitz, Cooper Criswell, as well with Cutter Crawford in the mix. And Sean Newcomb, he's had some nice moments as well. So they've got some starting pitching depth there, do the Red Sox there. To me, that's the best starting pitching depth overall I see in the American League East. The Blue Jays, they have some nice pieces, of course, with Scherzer, Barrios. Kevin Gausman's really struggled this spring. Tampa Bay Rays have Drew Rasmussen, and Shane McClanahan's coming back, although he came off the mound the other day. Potentially, he's re-injured. And the Rays are really just not a factor in the division. The Yankees, they had Garrett Cole and Max Fried, but Garrett Cole, of course, went down. So the Red Sox, as they stand right now, I'm looking at them as the best starting pitching depth in the American League East. American League East. I think it's time for a BOS Sports station identification. This is BOS Sports Podcast. So, back to the Red Sox. Going their bullpen, they got a lot of starting pitching depth. Of course, a couple of their guys struggling a little bit. Cooper Criswell, 4.66 ERA, not ideal. Who's that? Tanner Houck, struggling with 11.2 ERA. He might be able to turn around there for the Red Sox. But just a lot of depth, a lot of options there for Red Sox. Put 5 guys together who've had nice numbers this spring training. With Cooper Criswell, 4.66 ERA, being a little bit dicey there. So, as well, the Red Sox signed Aroldis Chapman. He's had a fantastic spring so far. 14 strikeouts and 7.1 innings pitched. 2.45 ERA, 1.09 whip. Bullpen, a big problem for the Sox last year with their defense, but in addition to Alex Bregman signing, Aroldis Chapman signing, 2 big pieces that appear to be very effective for the Red Sox. So we look at this Red Sox team, how they did last year. They've added a lot of talent. And how close that division was last year, I think they finished high in the American League and have one of the high seeds there in the wild card with Garrett Crochet. Should be winning that wild card series, making the NLDS, and from there using their pitching depth and offense to get to NLCS. I have them facing the Yankees in the NLCS. Yankees don't have a ton of pitching by them. Probably fizzle out a bit. A little bit dubious going in the playoffs here. But that's what I did there in that BOS Sports MLB season preview graphic made earlier today. So Justin Slayton as well for their bullpen, the Red Sox. He had a decent spring with 3.86 ERA, 1.29 whip, 4 strikeouts. As well, Brennan Bernardino and Zach Penrod looking formidable this spring from the left side out of their bullpen as well. Catcher is a question mark for both Connor Wong and Carlos Nevaez struggling at the plate. Tristan Casas is back after having season-ending injury last year. He had a bit of a slow spring with 195 average, 2 home runs, 706. As long as he stays healthy, I expect him to get more back on track. Second base is a bit of a question. They're currently weighing through options. Kristen Campbell, David Hamilton, Romy Gonez, Nick Sogard, Marcelo Meyer. A lot of good talent. We'll see who will be the opening day second baseman as well. Sedan Rosfiella, he's had a great spring. He might be the opening day second baseman. Shortstop, outfielder, utility man for the Red Sox this spring. 316 average, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 935 OPS. Trevor Story, he's returning as well, looking nice this spring. Potential for comeback player of the year, of course, having some injuries in the past. Batting this spring, 333 with 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 918 OPS. He's looked really comfortable at the plate this spring. Jarren Duran, tough spring, 196 average, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 5 569 OPS. Not really worried about Jarren Duran unless he's unhealthy in any kind of way. Willie Abreu, he's really struggling this spring. Reason for concern there with 0.5 average, 1 home run, 295 OPS. Huge reason for concern. He was a big part of the Red Sox success last year. Masataka Yoshida, nice spring, 286 average, 1 home run, 7 RBIs. OPS a little bit low, 686. Of course, he could potentially play outfield if Willie Abreu is struggling that much. Of course, Masataka Yoshida has been knocked a little bit for his defense. The key defensive concerns when he plays. Rob Refsnyder, Roman Anthony, nothing much to write home about on offense. Low average springs, but still pretty decent there at the plate. Rafael Devers, struggling this spring, 214 average, no home runs, 2 RBIs, 553 OPS. As long as he stays healthy, I expect him to produce and be Rafael Devers. He's always been. Of course, there's a little bit of that internal confliction there with Alex Bregman and him coming in to play third base. So hopefully that's worked out and things trend upward for Rafael Devers. New Sox, Alex Bregman, he's looked absolutely spectacular for the Red Sox offensively. 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 1.026 OPS, 279 average, as well as their infield defense looked way better this year in the games I've watched. So Blue Jays, team to watch out for this season. They have a lot of players who have our hot springs at the plate as well. Kevin Gausman, he's struggling in the rotation with a 7.71 ERA, 7 innings pitched so far this spring, so not much action there for Kevin Gausman. He had a late start to spring training and struggling a little bit. Question mark, as long as he's healthy, I expect him to be at least somewhat effective. And Jose Barrios, he's had a stellar spring so far. 18 strikeouts and 20.2 innings pitched. 2.18 ERA, 1.11 whip. Chris Bassett, a nice spring. 1.74 ERA, 20.2 innings pitched. 18 strikeouts, 0.79 whip. Max Scherzer, he's finally back and healthy. 1.3938 ERA, 13 innings pitched, 18 strikeouts, 0.46 whip. Max Scherzer looking strong this spring, and he can sustain all season, stay healthy. Bowden Francis, he's really struggling. Jake Bloss, their only pitching prospect, close to the show, is also struggling. 9 ERA, 8 innings pitched. So they've got 4 pitchers. That's 4 pitchers there. Their 5th spot is going to be a question mark pretty much all year. They don't really have an answer for that right now. Kevin Gausman is struggling as well. But then you look at their offense and you say, they might have a better year than some teams and even make the playoffs. They have a significant, if they have any significant rotation injuries, they'll be looking at doing even more bullpen games. But they have a very deep bullpen, so that's a little bit of a possibility and probably something they'll be doing a lot 5th day potentially. Spearheaded with Jeff Hoffman, who's having a great good spring training with 3.18 ERA, 5.2 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts, 1.06 whip. Yimi Garcia, 2.57 ERA this spring, 7 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, 0.57 whip. Chad Green, Blue Jays bullpen, 1.35 ERA, 6.2 innings pitched, 0.6 whip. Nick Sandlin, nice spring, 3.16 ERA. Eric Swanson, Brand Little, Uriel Garcia, Jared Barrett, Ron Barr, Zach Pop. Some struggles this spring, but nice depth to have. Probably be used situations such as openers at some point. Alejandro Kirk, on watch for a hot start this season. Potential all-star season for Alejandro Kirk. 302 average, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 819 OPS. Vladdy Jr. in his contract year coming into Tuesday's game was batting .298 with 1 home run, 5 RBIs, and 819 OPS. Expect him to have all-star silver slugger caliber season at plate. Andres Jimenez coming over to the Blue Jays. Nice addition for the Jays this offseason. 283 average, 2 home runs, 11 RBIs, 920 OPS. Bo Bichette, he struggled enough last year. Potentially comeback player of the year watch. Having the stalwart spring, 373 average, 4 home runs, 9 RBIs, 1.07 OPS this spring for Bo Bichette. George Springer, really struggling this spring. 108 average, 1 home run, 5 RBIs, 514 OPS in his age 35 season. Very concerning there for the Blue Jays. Miles Straw looking very strong this season. Spring training with 400 average, home run, 6 RBIs, 1.39 OPS. New Jay Anthony Santander having an absolutely solid spring with a 295 average, a home run, 9 RBIs, 813 OPS. Their DH, a bit of a question mark. Will they have Will Wagner, who's listed on the depth chart? He's played every position in the minor leagues. They can use Will Wagner as a super utility. Every position infield, that is, minor leagues. And you could potentially play first base, second base, shortstop, third base. Give guys day off and use that DH position versatilely. So looking at this Blue Jays team, they have a stalwart offense. They have a nice bullpen. They have a nice top 3 rotation. Their back end rotation's a question mark. I think they'll win a lot of games this year. I think they'll be much more successful last year and usurp a couple of teams in the AL East, potentially even the Orioles. I believe put the Blue Jays third in the AL East, getting in as a wild card. In the BOS Sports MLB season prediction. So everything, of course, hinges on the Blue Jays starting pitching rotation and how they can solidify that 5th start spot, and Max Scherzer, of course, staying healthy. So looking at the Yankees, the 2024 AL East division winner and the American League champion. They lost Juan Soto in the offseason, Clay Holmes in the offseason. They added Cody Bellinger, Max Fried. They also lost Garrett Cole to Tommy John, and they're hoping for Carlos Rodon to have a comeback season. The entire rotation for the Yankees this spring is struggling. Max Fried, he has decent numbers, but not quite stellar numbers. His ERA just a little bit under 4, a 3.38 ERA for Max Fried. 12 strikeouts, 0.81 whip, and 16 inning pitch for new Yankee Max Fried. As well, Carlos Carrasco, he's the only Yankees rotation member who's not had a struggle so far in spring training. With 1.69 ERA and 16 innings pitched, 5 strikeouts, 0.94 whip. And Giancarlo Stanton's already injured to begin the year. Yankees starting pitchers were not that good last year, but they won a ton of games with their bats and their bullpen, especially early on. And Clay Holmes, who was on fire the first half of 2024. They've now added Devin Williams, a potentially even better option. And as well, Jazz Chisholm added at the deadline last season. Cody Bellinger and Paul Goldschmidt added in the offseason. They're all mashing and looking really good. The Yankees are going to have a stalwart offense, one of the best lineups in Major League Baseball this season, even with Giancarlo Stanton out. New Yankees, Paul Goldschmidt and Cody Bellinger are mashing this spring. Goldie, 289 average, 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, 977 OPS. Cody Bellinger, 412 average, 4 home runs, 8 RBIs, 1.2 OPS. Jazz Chisholm, 2.13 average, 3 home runs, 12 RBIs, 876 OPS. G.J. LeMahieu, coming back in his age 36 season, only 2 at-bats so far, suffered a calf injury early on, spring training, placed on the IL. Tough break for DJ LeMahieu. By far, I already stated that, by far the deepest lineup in the AL East, maybe the entire AL. How they will get through games, the Yankees will be with their pitching. And Aaron Boone, he's been a wizard at getting that done, as they have a very loaded bullpen, and he likes game planning with his bullpen. Aaron Boone does, and he's been very good at getting the Yankees wins, even with all the problems, all the setbacks in their starting rotation. Carlos Rodon's not worked out for the Yankees. Garrett Cole went down, of course, this season. Last season, they had some problems as well. So, aforementioned, they have their loaded bullpen. Devin Williams installed as closer. Great spring, 2.25 ERA, 5 strikeouts, 1 whip. And of course, I wrote before that, I scoffed at the idea the Yankees being connected to Dylan Cease, giving up even more prospects, of course, after trading away Michael King, all that, Juan Soto last year. But really, a move like Dylan Cease, the Yankees would just be pretty scary for the rest of the league with how loaded their bullpen is. Having that ace as a pitcher, they instantly, I think, be bona fide favorites for the American League to repeat going to the World Series. They have loaded, and they have a few position players they could potentially trade away. As I wrote later in my notes, I believe they'll have more trade capital after the draft, as all teams will. But as well, Padres might be struggling by then. Might be a perfect storm for the Yankees. So, loaded bullpen, Mike Leiter Jr. as well, shoving the spring, scoreless in 3.2 innings pitched. Jake Cousins, he hasn't pitched. Tim Hill, nice spring. Yuri De Los Santos, 9.1 innings pitched, 1.93 ERA, 9 strikeouts, 1.39 whip this spring. Scott Efros, scoreless in 1 inning. Same with J2 Brubaker. Yandry Gomez, 11 innings pitched, scoreless, 9 strikeouts, 0.53 whip for the Yankees. Jonathan Loaizaga, nice spring, scoreless, 4 innings pitched so far, 3 strikeouts, 2 whip. Clayton Beeter, Ian Hamilton, both some struggles this spring, but nice step. Fernando Cruz really struggling this spring with a 9.95 ERA, but in just 6.1 innings pitched, he does have 11 strikeouts. He has that really good splitter with his cutter and a 4-seamer that sets just over 94, and that's their worst. That's their last option, their bullpen. Speaks to the depth they have. And Aaron Boone, aforementioned, he'll have a lot of fun managing that bullpen as he seems to enjoy doing. He can craft those Yankees wins, and I have them winning that division this year. By doing that formula, offense, bullpen, a little bit of luck with that starting rotation. Hopefully Max Fried has a good year. So Yankees have some position players in the minor leagues they can consider parting with. Bring in another starting pitcher. Might be a better idea than to wait after the draft, aforementioned. Have more players to trade away and potentially a lesser trade cost for a name like Dylan Cease. All right, we made it through the American League. At this point, going to play a segment that played a few times in my podcast. This is a segment about the Braves. Me going to Philadelphia, the Citizens Bank Park to see the Braves Phillies. Hostile environment. This is my trip to Philadelphia. So here we go, back from August 30th. My trip to Philadelphia, seeing Phillies, Braves, August 30th, a game which the Braves won 7-2. 6-pitch, Joe Jimenez to Bryce Harper here. The bottom of the 8th inning, 1-2 pitch. Fouled off, 87-mile-an-hour slider. Bryce Harper had a 10-pitch at-bat. We're really going to miss Joe Jimenez in 2025. Of course, he was announced last fall, being announced out for the year. Here comes a 7-pitch, 2-2. Slider down, ball. And here comes the 8th pitch to Bryce Harper. Joe Jimenez in 2024 had a 2.62 ERA, a sub-1 whip with 0.99, and 68.2 innings pitched. Another ball, 3-2. Count. Bryce Harper, fastball up, 95.8 miles an hour. Really wish the Braves would sign another high-leverage righty. There's still Kyle Finnegan, Luis Garcia out there for the Braves here on this date of February 12th, 2025. 9th pitch to Bryce Harper, 95-mile-an-hour fastball. And it was an absolutely brilliant inning by Joe Jimenez. You get 3 out of the 4 batters faced out. Including there's, I believe, a fan ran on the field. But here Bryce Harper goes up the middle to Michael Harris, center field, base hit. But here's another video from that night. Interesting thing that the Phillies did. They had an Elvis entertainer there. Don't have much comments for this. It was a nice, cool night there. A windy breeze. It's nice being in Philadelphia. Cool air, cool weather. I'd like to go back there. Citizens Bank Park in the summer heat of Atlanta in August. Perfect weather to eat, drink outside. It's a cool 60-ish degrees. Can even dip into the upper 50s a little bit. Get a little bit nippy, but it's a nice change of pace from the summer heat, the 90s, hundreds of Atlanta. Here you see the bullpen chilling out there. I'm sure they enjoy cooling off a little bit. Here's Brian Snitker, the Braves dugout. You can see Max Fried. Miss him. Marcell Ozuna at bat, wearing the yellow protective gear. Grant Holmes, we'll see what kind of year he has for Atlanta Braves this season. And here's some pictures from April. And here's AJ Smith's Schauber from 2023. We'll see if he continues to grow. He's been really growing athletically. Ronald Acuna Jr., hope he comes back strong this year. So here we go. Dodgers Braves, September 16th. Had to go. Tickets were inexpensive. Shohei Ohtani, Max Fried. Hits it up the middle. Whit Merrifield comes home. Miguel Rojas is safe. Part of a 9-0 Dodgers defeat over the Braves. Hope the Braves have more success over the Dodgers in 2025. Here as well some more pictures from my trip to Philadelphia, late August. Aforementioned, that weather was nice. Michael Harris had that absolute highlight catch. Did not get that on video, unfortunately. So I hope you enjoyed that re-aired segment, and I hope to make it back to Philadelphia sometime. Definitely enjoy that cool weather at the end of August. Gets hot here in the summer in Atlanta. So anyways, moving on, 2025 MLB season preview starting now. We just covered the AL here, the rest of this episode early on. Now, moving on to the National League, starting with National League West, team that's looking very good this spring, the San Francisco Giants. Definitely not the New York Giants. So, they added Justin Verlander to young rotation this offseason, with, of course, Jordan Hicks, who joined the rotation offseason after being converted into starting pitcher from relief pitcher. And their top three have all looked really strong this spring. Justin Verlander, he started off with an ERA under 2. He's been lagging a little bit, showed a little bit of struggles recently. But so far, Logan Webb, Robbie Ray, all having a nice spring, with Robbie Ray having 23 strikeouts, a 0.62 whip, and 1.86 ERA, and 19.1 innings pitched. Early watch for a surprise upshot year for Robbie Ray, a 33-year-old lefty veteran with 3.98 career ERA. And Jordan Walker, Jordan Hicks. Oh, putting the wrong player there. Jordan Hicks, not Jordan Walker. He's really struggling, aforementioned the spring training, with a 5.4 ERA as of March 14th. Now that's trended a little bit upwards with a 5.84 ERA. His whip has trended better since then. He had a 2.2 ERA whip March 14th, my last podcast episode where I covered the NL West. He now has a 1.54 whip. Kyle Harrison, he's in the mix for a fifth starter, struggling even worse with a 10.8 ERA, 2.1 whip. Landon Roop, he's really come on the spring, looking for him to make the opening day rotation. 3.75 ERA, 12 inning pitch, 14 strikeouts. So you got Logan Webb, Robbie Ray, Justin Verlander, Landon Root, Hayden Birdsong, who appears to be winning the battle for a fourth or fifth starter for the Giants, having a 0.75 ERA, 18 strikeouts, 0.5 whip. So you could potentially look at Jordan Hicks going back to the bullpen if you want. You can use him as a sixth starter. The Giants have a lot of starting rotation depth as well. If Landon Root, if Kyle Harrison, he shapes up as well after struggling this spring with the aforementioned 10.8 ERA. That's a pretty deep rotation for the Giants. Hayden Bursong, aforementioned, with a 0.75 ERA. 23-year-old right-hander who started 16 games from Giants last season with a 4.75 ERA, looking to have a breakout season this year. Of course, they have Zach Manassian, the new GM with Buster Posey in the front office. Team to watch out for. Aforementioned, they have a lot of starting pitching options. Could potentially see them going with a 6-man rotation. Camino Doval, after struggling last season with a 4.88 ERA, has started this spring strong with a 1.5 ERA. I'm going to pause really quick. It's allergy season to blow my nose. BOS Sports Podcast. So chugging along right here with this Giants bullpen. They have a nice starting rotation. Camino Doval, he has a strong spring so far, 1.5 ERA as of March 14th, and that's down ticked a little bit. 1.13 coming into Tuesday's game with a 0.75 whip, 11 strikeouts, 8 innings pitched. He had injuries early on last year. If he comes in this year healthy, he should be more effective. Have a better year this year for the Giants. Ryan Walker, who's installed as closer, when Camino Doval's absence and struggles himself, he's struggling this spring himself with a 4.7 ERA and 7.2 innings pitched, but been doing better recently. Spencer Bevins, Randy Rodriguez, nice springs, with Randy having 1.93 ERA, 12 strikeouts, 1.18 whip. Very good front half of their bullpen with not a ton of depth. When they take the lead in late innings from their starting pitcher, they should win most of their games with that strong front half of the bullpen for the Giants. Patrick Bailey, and they can add to that. If they have too many starters, put Jordan Hicks in there. Why not? So Patrick Bailey, breakout season, watch with 316 average, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, 892 OPS. New Giants shortstop Boy Adames really mashing the spring training with 333 average, .959 OPS with 15 RBIs and 48 at-bats, 3 home runs. Last year's acquisition, big marquee acquisition for the Giants last offseason, Matt Chapman, he's going off with a 405 average, 1.312 OPS, 14 RBI, 6 home runs this spring. Really strong breakout spring training for Matt Chapman. Only question is, can he find that consistency and maintain it all season? With these kind of numbers coming out of spring training, he'd be on watch for National League MVP if, of course, Shohei Ohtani didn't exist and wasn't in that same National League. Jung-Ho Lee, another marquee signing from last offseason for the Giants, have a nice spring, 237 average, 900 OPS, 2 home runs. Both of them occurred early on in spring training. So they've got great starting pitching depth. They've got nice offense. Mike Yastrzemski as well, heating up. Jared Encarnacion having a nice spring to watch. They've got some offensive pieces. They've got a nice rotation. They've got a good front half of that bullpen. I look for the Giants to win a lot of games, to be a stalwart force there in the National League. Arizona Diamondbacks, they added Corbin Burns, the largest free agent starting pitcher in the offseason, moving along to the Diamondbacks. Surprise to many, except for those that knew he lived in Arizona in the offseason. Stellar start so far for Burns in 4 games. He had a stellar start to spring training, spring training, and since has struggled. His first 4 games, he had a 0.96 ERA and 9.1 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts, 0.96 whip. But he's really struggled since. He now has a 5.06 ERA. Zach Gallen, he's been trending upward since March 14th and now has a 2.89 ERA, 14 strikeouts, and a 1.39 whip. Merrill Kelly, he's had a strong start to spring with a 2.39 ERA, 3 games with 1.7 whip, 7.2 innings, now struggling with 4.73 ERA, 15 innings pitched, 16 strikeouts, 1.5 whip. Brandon Pfaadt, 2022 NLDS hero for the Diamondbacks. 4 points NLCS hero, 4.8 ERA this spring. 14 strikeouts, 1.5 whip. Struggles for Brandon Pfaadt. Eduardo Rodriguez, who they signed last offseason and struggled in 2024, with a 5 ERA. He's having good spring training so far, though only 2 appearances so far, 5 innings scoreless. 6 strikeouts for Eduardo Rodriguez this spring so far. 0.2 whip. Maybe a secret weapon for him. After those initial 2 appearances, I read my notes from the 14th. Coming into Tuesday's actions, he has a 2.7 ERA with 12 strikeouts and 0.9 whip. There, as he's started and played a little bit more for the Diamondbacks since I last looked up his stats, the 14th, which that point he was scoreless with 2 appearances. Jordan Montgomery, his ERA has trended downward since last podcast on 14th. He now has a ERA of 15 and 3 innings pitched. Not great for Jordan Montgomery. Ryan Nelson, potential 5th starter, 0.88 whip and 8 innings pitched, 2.25 ERA as of March 14th, but he's really struggled since then, as he now has a 7.9 ERA and 13.2 innings pitched, 9 strikeouts this spring. And after having a stellar bullpen 2022, very deep bullpen, they still have some of those names left. And this spring training, Kevin Kinkle, Joe Mantiply, AJ Puck, they're all having nice spring trainings as well. Corbin Carroll, he's having a hot spring so far. 386 average, 4 home runs, 10 RBIs, 1.165. Comeback player of the year watch for Corbin Carroll. Eugenio Suarez, a nice spring, 286 average, 3 home runs, 18 RBIs for the Diamondbacks, a 964 OPS. Marginal improvement at the plate for Suarez would translate into some very beefy numbers, as in 2024 he had 30 home runs and 101 RBIs, with a 256 average, 319 on-base percentage, and 788 OPS. Geraldo Perdomo, who signed an extension this offseason with the Diamondbacks, having a nice spring. With a 295 average, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 827 OPS. He had a really strong start to spring training, but has cooled off a little bit. Randall Grichuk as well with a nice start. Cooled off a little bit. Not very worried about these players that have cool off a little bit later in spring training. If they show these flashes like Randall Grichuk did early on, look for him to have a strong year. And he's still finished with great numbers. As coming into Tuesday, Randall Grichuk had a 297 average, 3 home runs, 13 RBIs, and 945 OPS. Ketel Marte coming into Tuesday's games, the final spring training games of the year. He had a 350 average, 1 home run, 10 RBIs, 861 OPS. David Smith, 298 average, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs coming into Tuesday's games, 882 OPS. The Diamondbacks are well balanced. Night offense, they got some starting pitching pieces, some bullpen pieces. But they really need to add to their depth in the bullpen. Work out a situation with Jordan Montgomery, who was reported to be at odds with the franchise last fall. Newly added Josh Naylor is going off, making a statement after the Guardians offloaded him. A 370 average this spring with 8 RBIs, a home run, and 998 OPS. Lourdes Gurriel as well, a 302 average, 1 home run, 10 RBIs, 721 OPS. Jake McCarthy, some struggles this spring. So moving on, the Padres. They're, of course, the Braves' first matchup this year, Thursday. Here coming up in a few hours, not too far away. 4 p.m., 4:10 p.m. Eastern Time, first pitch. 1:10 p.m. Pacific Time, March 27th. And, of course, they're the center of the largest trade rumors going around right now with Dylan Cease. Of course, he's in a contract year, and he's been linked to teams like Yankees and the Braves. And the Padres, they had Joe Musgrove go down for the year with Tommy John. Have to imagine the Padres, though, they will keep Dylan Cease until the trade deadline, give the roster a chance. I think they have a good chance to win a lot of games, potentially be a playoff team this year. It really all depends on how their position players perform, and not entirely positive on that right now. When I last checked on March 14th as well, their rotation was really struggling. Michael King and Dylan Cease really struggled early in spring training, but have trended better and finished with ERAs under 4. They should be stalwart pitchers. They've been, and Braves have their hands full this weekend as well. Yu Darvish's numbers have improved slightly since we last looked at them March 14th. Nick Pivetta, a very solid spring, 3.38 ERA, 17 strikeouts, a 0.98 whip. Unfortunately, that only adds up to 4 starting pitchers, as their other options, Matt Waldron, Randy Vasquez, Kyle Hart, they're all struggling mightily. And they seem to have the second weakest rotation in the NL West. Things potentially looking like a disaster for the Padres just a couple weeks ago when King and Cease were struggling. Things are now looking like less a disaster, but still concerning. They have a very deep bullpen. Their closer is struggling mightily, with Robert Suarez having 15.43 ERA this spring, 3.2 WHIP. And bullpen depth doesn't really mean that much if you can't get the last out of the game. So Rockies are a bit of a mess. Moving on. Pitching, especially at starting pitching wise. It's a shame because their offense is starting to shake up some. And they have a pretty stalwart lineup there in the NL West, which is crazy to say. All the talent there. Bradley Blaylock, he's had a great spring. A starting pitcher for the Rockies, one of the few that aren't struggling with 1.02 ERA, 20 strikeouts, 1.3 whip. He features a 5-pitch mix, fastball, slider, split curve, cutter from the right side. Will that success translate to Coors Field from spring training? Antonio Senzatella as well, nice spring for the Rockies, 0.9 whip, 19 strikeouts, 22.1 innings pitched, 1.21 ERA in 6 games. He's well as a 5-pitch mix guy. Depending on off speed, he's been be interesting to see if his spring training numbers translate as well. Anthony Senzatella, as depending on off speed can sometimes be a dubious plan there at Coors Field. It'd be interesting to see if the spring training numbers transfer. The rest of the Rockies starting pitchers ERAs well over 6. Except for Jermaine Marquez, who has a 5.74 ERA with 10 strikeouts and 15.2 innings pitched and 1.72 whip. The Rockies have some interesting bullpen pieces, but a lot of them rely on those breaking pitches aforementioned that do not always work out well at Coors Field. Rockies' Victor Vodnik and Braves legend Jimmy Herget having solid springs. Jimmy Herget having a 2.92 ERA, 9 strikeouts, 12.1 innings pitched, 0.89. Again, depends on off speed. Will it translate to Coors Field? Jeff Criswell, he has a nice spring training, a 2.75 ERA, 19.2 innings pitched, 27 strikeouts, 1.47 whip. Bit of a concern. Tyler Kinley, stellar scoreless spring training for the Rockies bullpen, 0.45 whip, 10 strikeouts, and 6.2 innings pitched, 0 ERA. He relies on that slider, most used pitch in 2024. He also has a nice fastball, sits mid-upper 90s. Hopefully his spring training translates for those Rockies. Jake Bird also having a nice spring training. Rest of the bullpen struggling mightily. Power arms coming. There are no power arms coming out of the pen at Coors Field for the Rockies. Many games, many leads will be blown there at Coors Field for the Rockies this year, and they're a lock to be last place in the division. Unfortunately, they had a little bit more there at that starting pitching depth. If they had a power reliever, I don't know if they got that reliever from the Oakland A's. Mason Miller, put him on the Rockies. Put Dylan Cease on the Rockies. They started looking like something, but with how packed the NL West is, that just wouldn't be enough. to win the division. Although I think if they made a couple small changes like that, they'd potentially be a wild card team. So Dodgers, moving on, they've already played 1-2 games, of course, in Japan series, Tokyo series, and praying for Mookie Betts. Hopefully he's okay. The reports out of his illness have been scary with him not being able to hold down solid food. So we all think Mookie Betts, and hopefully he does well. Turns and a strong, stalwart player, MVP caliber player as he's always been. So the only question for the Dodgers this season is, can they keep their best starting pitchers and relief pitchers healthy going into the postseason as far as their chances of repeating this year as well? They got a couple small offensive questions, but when you have Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, both in one lineup, that's just a lot. And then the rest of the lineups, of course, loaded as well. Nance Muncy, Michael Conforto, Teoscar Hernandez. Hopefully Mookie Betts comes back nice and strong. Will Smith, he's been struggling this spring. We'll get into that in a second. So, of course, they have a lot of depth at that starting pitching position, but depending on Clayton Kershaw, Dustin May in 2025 might become a little bit dubious. We'll see how they perform. We'll definitely see them for the Dodgers as long as they're healthy this season. Tyler Glasnow and Roki Sasaki, they've had great spring trainings, while Roki Sasaki, he struggled a bit in Japan. He's going to have to add another pitch to his repertoire to make it there in long innings here in Major League Baseball, and with his amazing fastball and splitter. So Blake Snell, he struggled with spring training, but look for him to be effective as long as he's healthy. I'm not concerned about his spring training numbers. Kirby Yates, who came over from the Rangers to the Dodgers, he struggled this spring, $13 million, 1 year. Kirby Yates signed with the Dodgers, and early in spring training, his numbers were a little bit concerning. He absolutely shoved in Japan. He looked stalwart as well. Since then, his spring training numbers have been trending upwards. Tanner Sott, same story. Alex Vesia, he had stellar spring training numbers prior to the Japan series. He did give up couple base runners there in Japan. Will Smith struggling. Freddie Freeman, numbers down a bit. He's come back from an ankle injury. He did not play in Japan. Max Muncy is looking to have a resurgent year. Tommy Edman, he's evolved into a whole new player there after coming to the Dodgers. Now showing some nice pop. Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor constantly producing as utility players for the Dodgers. They'll plug and play when they have a player like Vargas struggling, or a player like Max Muncy or so injured. They'll plug and play Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor, and they'll produce for Dodgers that they continue to do year after year. Michael Conforto, he's had a hot spot this spring, but cooled off. Coming into Tuesday's games, he had a .233 average, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 828 OPS. Teoscar Hernandez, coming in Tuesday's games, .289 average, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, 883 OPS. Andy Pages struggling, .212 average. Will he be able to figure it out eventually? 1 home run, 4 RBIs, 619 OPS. Shohei Ohtani's final spring training numbers as before Tuesday's game, Tuesday's games, a .286 average, 1 home run, 2 RBIs, 924 OPS. Of course, take these Dodgers numbers with an extra grain of salt, as they had an earlier start to their season there in the Tokyo series, and they absolutely look like the dominant force that everyone expects them to be there in that Tokyo series, even without Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. So moving on to the NL Central, Cubs rotation has been a complete mess this spring and in Japan. Justin Steele, 9.35 ERA this spring. He looked bad versus the Dodgers, 11.5 ERA in Japan. Jameson Taillon struggling this spring, 6.75 ERA and just 10.2 innings pitched. Shota Imanaga struggling in his sophomore season, 5.73 ERA this spring. Matt Boyd, Colin Ray, Ben Brown, ERA is well over 6. We saw Ben Brown today versus the Braves. He looked good there the first time to the order and then started to struggle. Potential for the Braves, or the Cubs, to be as bad as the White Sox this season. I'm serious. Their pitching is just absolutely awful this spring. as well. They were maimed by injuries last season, and their new manager, Craig Counsell, they burned through all of their minor league starting pitching depth, plugging and playing last season early on, hoping to keep their season alive. I think they just mismanaged things, and the Cubs, I think they're in a very bad position there, and I look for the Cubs to have a collapse. If the Pirates had any offense at all, I think that the Cubs would be the worst team in NL Central this season. Would the Cubs be interested in trading Dansby Swanson to the Braves if they're last in the division at the trade deadline? I don't think things will get that bad, but I do think they'll be on the losing side. Aforementioned, I think the Pirates will be worse in the division this year as they just absolutely have no offense. Nate Pearson and Julian, which is a shame because they probably had the best overall pitching in the NL Central. Nate Pearson and Julian Merriweather, for going back to the Cubs here, they've had some nice spring training numbers, but the rest of their bullpen is struggling mightily. Ryan Brazier, their assigned closer, 4.76 ERA this spring. He didn't give up a run in Japan, but he did have 3 base runners. Michael Busch may be the lone bright spot along with Pete Crow this year for the Cubs. Potential breakout season from both Seiya Suzuki, a decent spring, but Nico Horner, Matt Shaw, Ian Happ really struggling. Coming into Tuesday's games, did not get the Pete Crow Armstrong's final spring training numbers, but coming into Tuesday's games, he had a 500 average with 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, 1.391 OPS coming in Tuesday's game. Did Pete Crow Armstrong potentially might be here as his spring training numbers, he never hit over the Mendoza line. So this is by far his best spring training he's ever had. But unfortunately for the rest of the lineup, and Kyle Tucker really struggling, 0.71 average this spring. The Cubs, they kind of look like they have a lot of 4A players there. In their lineup, they don't have a rotation. They have like two relief pitchers that they might be able to count on. They were maimed by injuries last year. Jamison Tylon, he hasn't even pitched 11 innings. And he's supposed to be their number 2 starter, and he's struggling, 6.75 ERA. I think this is Cubs disaster season written all over it. And would not be surprised if, there's no way they're making the playoffs. But I have them on watch for Cubs disaster season. So moving on to the Reds, they are faring better, and they have a lot of starting pitchers. Brady Singer, Nick Martinez, Nick Lodolo, Carson Spires, Andrew Abbott, Rhett Lauder all have stellar numbers this spring. ERA is well under 3. Rhett Lauder having 1.17 ERA in 30 innings pitched, 22 strikeouts, 1.27 WHIP. So not very heavy on these strikeouts there. And this will be very interesting rotation starting pitchers for Reds. See if their spring training numbers translate to the regular season this year. Very deep at starting position. And that's all with their ace, Hunter Green. He's struggling this spring, 5.57 ERA in 21 innings. But he does have 29 strikeouts and a decent 1.38 WHIP. So that 5.57 ERA does not quite tell the entire story for Hunter Green. I think if he's healthy, he'll be a stalwart force for the Reds. Alexis Diaz, he's struggling this spring with a 3.3 WHIP, 3.1 innings pitched, 1 strikeout, 13 ERA. And that's their designated closer, I believe. So struggling a little bit. And the rest of their bullpen is struggling as well, except for Emilio Pagan. Has a 2.25 ERA, 4 innings pitched, 5 strikeouts, 1.5 WHIP. Not so good of a combo to have a struggling bullpen in Great American Ballpark. As well, the Reds' offense is fairly thin. They offloaded Jonathan India. They got Austin Hayes having a nice spring, 310 average, 3 home runs. Maybe breakout season for Austin Hayes. Ellie De La Cruz, he's doing his thing. He's an absolute stud, all-star, should be. 409 average, 4 home runs, 12 RBIs, 1.292 OPS for Ellie De La Cruz. Gavin Lux, who came over from the Dodgers, 300 average, 2 home runs, 965 OPS. Christian Encarnacion Strand, 280 average, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, 899 OPS. Those are the bright spots. You got a nice 1, 2, 3, 4... Nice four hitters there for the Reds. So if any of them gets injured, spells disaster on them. So the Reds, they got a nice starting rotation. They got 4 pretty decent offensive players, of course, with the all-star LED the Cruz. And they don't have much of a bullpen. So they'll be a force. They'll be a fun team. They'll win some games. But looking for them to finish in the bottom of the standings of the NL Central. Excuse me. Correction. I have them finishing. I believe I have them finishing second. I'll look it up here. Hit the graphic I made 2 minutes ago. That's not good. I have Reds finishing second in the division. I stated all those concerns. I'm concerned about their bullpen. They don't have very deep lineup. That starting pitching rotation will give them a chance to win every game the whole season. But it's holding the lead, of course, in that small ballpark. And really, I'm looking at the rest of this NL Central, and I'm looking at teams that are disasters. The Cubs, disaster watch season. The St. Louis Cardinals, Sonny Gray is absolutely a mess right now. They have Miles Mikolas and another starter who's doing decently. I'm just looking at the rest of this NL Central, and I just, even with all these concerns I have about the Reds and their bullpen and their lineup not being that deep, yes, I just don't see how the other teams finish above them in the standings. So, correction, do not see them finishing low in the NL Central standings. See them finishing low maybe in the NL standings overall. But I've been finishing second in NL Central. Very interesting. So, Cardinals, moving on, their starting pitching is a mess. Of course, Matthew Liberatore, he has a 1.62 ERA. Sonny Gray really struggling this spring. Andre Vellante really struggling this spring. Eric Fede and Miles Mikolas, sub-4 ERAs this spring, but depending on Eric Fede in 2025 doesn't seem like a great plan. They got a nice bullpen. Ryan Helsley, 2.25 ERA, 6 strikeouts, 0.88 whip this spring. Steven Matz, 2.929 ERA, 7 strikeouts, 0.97 whip. Phil Maton, only 1 innings pitched this spring. Kyle Leahy, 11 scoreless innings, 13 strikeouts, 0.73 whip. Chris Rakoff, 8 innings scoreless, 8 strikeouts, 1.13 whip. Jojo Romero, 9 innings scoreless this spring, 15 strikeouts, 0.89 whip. Loaded bullpen. Very nice bullpen for the Cardinals, but how are they going to score runs? Their catchers who replace Wilson Contreras, Ivan Herrera, and Pedro Pages, they're having a decent spring. But Jordan Walker's struggles continue with a 161 average, 4 RBIs. Michael Ciani really struggling with an average under 100, an 0.95 average. The whole team struggling. Mason Wynn, Mars Nootbaar, Nolan Goldman, Nolan Arenado as well. Lone bright spot on offense for the Cardinals is Wilson Contreras, hitting .405 in spring. 2 home runs, only 6 RBIs. So they got no offense. They're going to depend on Matthew Liberatore, Miles Mikolas, and Eric Fede. Things are not looking that great for the Cardinals this season. Of course, they have that loaded bullpen. And I just do not see how the Pirates are going to score runs. I do not see how the Cubs are going to get through the season with their pitching. So I have the Cardinals finishing middle of the pack there in NL Central. Which will be nice after last year's, I believe they finished last place last year. I had them last place last year. Not many people believe me, but the Cardinals, they've got some problems there they got to figure out. Pirates, nice top 3 pitching prospect. Nice top 3 starting pitchers. Moving on, the Pirates. Of course, headlined by Paul Skeens. Got nice spring training numbers, 18 innings pitched, 23 strikeouts, 2.5 ERA, whip. Mitch Keller, 2.4 ERA, 15 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts, 1.2 whip. Jared Jones, 2.25 ERA, 17 strikeouts, 12 innings pitched. Carmen Zielinski, 3.72 ERA, 9.2 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts, 1.34 whip. Bailey Falter, Andrew Heaney, they're both struggling, but a nice depth there to have. Only makes 4 pitchers, though, and their 5th spot is big question mark with Bubba Chandler, their top starting pitching prospect, struggling this spring. Well, Thomas Harrington right behind him, he's not fared much better. So Andrew Heaney, Bailey Falter, they'll probably get a look. And if Bubba Harrington or Bubba Chandler or Thomas Harrington, their prospects, they have a hot spring, they might DFA somebody and bring in one of their prospects early on to give the Pirates a boost. If they're winning games, as for mention, I don't see how they're going to score. They would be an interesting candidate for, if they could score, for a Dylan Cease trade, as that would be an absolutely scary and stalwart starting 5 rotation. And they've got a nice bullpen as well. David Bednar, he's struggling with an ERA of 10 strikeouts though, and 8 innings pitched, 1.75 whip. He might turn that around, that ERA. But after that, Colin Holderman, 1.17 ERA, 11 strikeouts. Dennis Santana, 2.35 ERA, 0.52 whip. Joey Wentz, 2.8 ERA, 12 strikeouts, and 8.2 innings pitched. Ryan Uricki, nice spring training ERA of 0.93, 14 strikeouts, and 9.2 innings pitched. Of course, all these stats coming into Tuesday's game, before last game of spring training. So they've got a nice bullpen. Caleb Ferguson as well, solid spring. Isaac Watson, 4.5 ERA. Hunter Stratton, only 1 appearance this spring, but was scoreless. So that's a very deep bullpen for this Pirates squad. Nice starting rotation. Overall, probably the best pitching staff in the National League Central. The problem is their offense. No offense except Joey Bart, who might be a breakout season alert. 350 average this spring, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 1.05 OPS this spring. The rest of the Pirates have really struggled. Andrew McCutchen, Tommy Ham, Isaiah Kiner-Flaffel, Brian Hayes, Adam Frazier, Nick Gonzalez, Spencer Horwitz. How are the Pirates going to score runs in 2025? If they could score runs, they could contend for the division, depending on, of course, how well they scored runs. The Brewers are absolute juggernaut offensively. They have some questions there in their starting rotation. Got a nice bullpen. And, of course, the Brewers' next team we're about to look at. Brandon Woodruff, he returned the other day after being out all last season with a very dubious shoulder surgery. Shoulders are very dubious for pitchers, and coming back from those surgeries. He had 1 inning scoreless. Imagine he'll begin the year in AAA Nashville and eventually get up to the bigs after being built up. So that could be big, especially with Freddie Peralta. He's been struggling with an 8.56 ERA, but decent whip, 1.61, and 16 strikeouts and 13.2 innings pitched. Not a lot of work for Freddie Peralta. And he struck out 5 batters in his last start on March 21st. Looking for him to be stalwart as he's always been. As long as he's healthy, I think Freddie Peralta will be Freddie Peralta, the stalwart starting pitcher we've all come to know. Nestor Cortez coming over from the Yankees. He's had a nice spring so far with a 3.27 ERA. 14 strikeouts, 1.6 whip, 11 innings pitched. Always liked Nasty Nestor. I thought he fared well in the very tough AL East and NL Central, which is much weaker offensively. Looking for him to have a strong year. We saw that happen with Marcus Stroman when he went to the Cubs the other year because NL Central, weak offense. All right. Tobias Myers, nice spring. Jose Quintana, nice spring. 3.6 ERA for Jose Quintana. 5 innings pitched. He just signed March 3rd, so he might not be available for opening day roster. Something to look out for. I think that he will definitely be on the opening day roster, and they'll just limit his innings/pitches for Jose Quintana in his first start and continue to build him up in his first couple, as their bullpen is so loaded that they have the luxury to do that. Nestor Cortez, he threw in yesterday's 3 spring training games. So as well, Jose Quintana, he might be doing like a sim game situation before his first regular season start after only pitching 5 innings so far this spring. Rest of their starting pitching options: Aaron Savali, Aaron Ashby, Tyler Alexander, Elvin Rodriguez. They're all struggling this spring training. They'll have to rock with Freddie Peralta, Nestor Cortez, Myers, Quintana, and work with one of these starting pitchers who are struggling, and hope that Brandon Woodruff comes back strong. And at that point, they'll have a very stalwart starting rotation. Deep bullpen headed by Trevor McGill. No more Devin Williams, of course, with the Yankees now. Joe Papias, Jared Koenig, nice springs. Brian Hudson, Tyler Alexander struggling. Nick Mears, 3 innings pitched so far, scoreless. 2 whip. Albert Uribe struggling. 11.12 ERA for the Brewers. And 5.2 innings pitched. But 8 strikeouts and nice depth to have. Elvin Peguero, nice numbers for the Brewers. 2.16 ERA. 8 innings pitched, 9 strikeouts, 1.08 whip. Craig Yoho, 15 strikeouts. 8.2 innings pitched with a 3.12 ERA and 1.04 whip for the Brewers this spring. Coming into Tuesday's action, of course. Deep bullpen. Christian Yelich on C-Ploy watch. Comeback player of the year. With a monstrous 353 average, 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, 1.124 OPS. Hopefully he can stay strong, of course, and have a healthy season. Sal Frelick, strong spring. 390 average, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 1.01, 18 OPS. Jackson Chourio, absolutely out of control. Coming into Tuesday's games, he had a 469 average this spring with 8 RBIs and 1.122 OPS. Joey Ortiz, mashing as well. 341 average this spring, 2 home runs, 9 RBI, 1.14 OPS. William Contreras, favorite for Silver Slugger at catcher this season. 444 average, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, 1.149 OPS. Rhys Hoskins, 6 home runs this spring. Wow. So the Braves and Phillies fans can connect this season and get together and whine together over how bad their trades of William Contreras and Rhys Hoskins to the Brewers were, as they were not winners for either team. Oliver Dunn as well, looking sharp at third baseman for the Brewers. 340 average, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, 960 OPS, potential breakout year. Outside of the starting pitching rotation, the Brewers look like a stalwart, bona fide contender coming out of spring training. Absolutely mashing. One of the better offensive teams in baseball looking like coming out of spring training. If Brandon Woodruff can come back and look somewhat like he did, and Freddie Peralta is a stalwart self, and the spring training struggles do not translate, they're absolutely winning division and probably even more of a favorite, even more of a lock to win the NL Central, considering those factors, than the Dodgers are in the NL West. That's how much and how high I am on these Brewers team, especially compared to the rest of the NL Central. The rest of the NL Central teams are really a mess. So, NL East, last division. And for the Marlins, Sandy Alcantara is back. But the organization as a whole is a mess. Otto Lopez, Xavier Edwards are young, fine players there in the middle infield there for the Marlins. And they'll have exciting moments there that the fans can cheer about. Hopefully they draw some fans there. And the people who follow the team can be excited about those players. As it'll be the same team that we've come to know, pretty much a lock for last place in the division. Last year, they struggled a little bit more and a little bit more of a pushover with their starting pitching rotation struggles. This year, Sandy Alcantara is back. And we'll be that same pestry team, I think, again, where they put up that huge big fight and start the series. They're with Alcantara. Their bullpen isn't as good as it used to be, so they won't really be able to leverage that at all. They might get it to some early leads and by luck hold them versus our teams like the Braves if our team just really struggles versus their bullpen. But Calvin Vocher, Jesus Tinoco, Anthony Bender, Lake Bachar, Chapin, Cloman, George Soriano, all struggling this spring. Anthony Venciano, Ronnie Henriquez, Seth Martinez, all struggling as well. Likely disaster year for the Marlins. And if that's the case, and they just can't hold any leads this year, along with all other factors, I implore them to trade Sandy Alcantara before they use him away to make up for this lack of bullpen depth and get him injured again. Concerns for that Marlins team and Sandy Alcantara. Hopefully he gets traded away. Not to rival the Braves. I guess that's where they'd have to be traded, as Braves don't have a need for a starting pitcher right now. So hopefully they don't trade Sandy Alcantara. I don't think they will. So the Nationals have a decent rotation shaping up this spring with Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, Mitchell Parker, Trevor Williams, all having nice springs. Michael Soroka, he had a nice start to spring training, but he has struggled as late. Concerning for him as he looks to try to salvage his Major League Baseball career. Kyle Finnegan, he signed late this offseason and struggling. One of the names I advocated for. He's really struggling. And right now, looking like it was a good idea for the Braves not to add him. Of course, can't compare those situations being on the Nationals and the Braves, especially being the star closer role. If he was on the Braves, he'd be one of our lower relievers. So the rest of the bullpen is also struggling outside of Jose Ferrer there for the Nationals. He has 12 strikeouts and 8.1 scoreless, 8.1 scoreless innings and 10 appearances this spring. Jose Ferrer there for the Nationals. Coming out of the left side, lefty, with a 0.72 whip. Eduardo Salazar as well, having a nice spring with 14 strikeouts and 9 appearances, 11.1 pitch with a 2.38 ERA. So Nationals have Jose Ferreira and Eduardo Salazar looking nice this spring, coming out of their bullpen. The rest of their bullpen is struggling. And they have somewhat of a formidable lineup. They would be looking a lot more formidable if their offseason signing Josh Bell wasn't struggling as much. He currently has a 130 average this spring and 46 ABs. Dylan Cruz, decent spring, 273 average, 55 at-bats, but no home runs and only 5 RBIs. James Wood, hot spring this year. Looking for him to have a big year with a 283 average, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, and OPS over 1. CJ Abrams as well, solid spring, 273 average, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. Paul DeJong, a couple home runs this spring, 8 RBIs. Big question for Paul DeJong. They'll be playing him at third base, is always his defense. He'll always hit some. Keibert Ruiz, will he finally have a breakout year? All right, we're back. Keibert Ruiz, will he finally have a breakout year this season? 11 RBIs this spring, 289 average, 3 home runs, 45 at-bats. Nationals have some offense going. Brady House, he had a nice spring training, 364 average, 22 at-bats with an RBI and 871 OPS. He will start out in the minors. He is their top position player prospect, other than Dylan Cruz, who's already in the majors. House, if Bell continues to struggle, House can potentially come in to usurp Josh Bell at some point in the season, potentially even very early on here in April. So moving on here to the Mets. Newly converted starting pitcher Clay Holmes, really successful spring, 23 strikeouts, 19.1 inning pitch, 0.78 whip, 0.93 ERA. Started out the year strong. Last year for the Yankees, now on the Mets as a starting pitcher. Can he keep it up? Sean Manaea looking strong this spring. Trevor Miguel continues to be a bit of a question mark, 1.18 whip, the 4.24 ERA. Not ideal for Trevor Miguel. Griffin Caney, 22 strikeouts, 1.88 ERA, 14.1 innings pitched. David Peterson, has he finally figured it out? 0.57 ERA, 15.2 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts, 0.58 whip. Kodai Senga. Nice spring, but only 9 innings pitched, 2 ERA, 9 strikeouts, 1.22 whip. Bullpen is very deep for the Mets, except for Edwin Diaz's struggles continue after suffering that brutal injury in the World Baseball Classic. just still does not look the same with a 5.4 ERA this spring. Just 5 strikeouts and 3.1 innings pitched and 2.4 whip. Ryan Stanek, he's had a nice spring, but only 4 innings pitched, 4.1 that is, coming into Tuesday. 3 strikeouts, 1.15 whip, 0 ERA. Been effective when he's been healthy. Reed Garrett, coming into Tuesday's games, had 6 innings scoreless, 9 strikeouts, 0.33 whip. Nasty shoving Reed Garrett is. Jose Muto for the Mets, solid spring, coming into Tuesday. 3.18 ERA, 6 strikeouts, 5.1 innings pitched, 1.59 whip. Max Kranick, coming into the last game of spring training, had 15 strikeouts and 12.1 innings pitched, 0.81 whip, 1.46 ERA. Danny Young, coming in the last game of spring training, had a 1.93 ERA, 7 strikeouts, 4.2. He had a 1.07 whip. Can Danny Young put together a career year? I believe his ERA last year was 4.2. Oh, no. Last season, Danny Young's ERA was 4.54. So, new Met, AJ Minter, he's really struggling. 5.79 ERA as well. Paul Blackburn also struggling. ERA over 5. The bullpen, all I said is very deep. It isn't very deep with Diaz is struggling. And if Ryan Stanek is injured as well, his bullpen isn't very deep. But, of course, flip side of that, if Edwin Diaz is healthy and pitching up to his potential, and Ryan Stanek is healthy, it's a very deep bullpen. So, a couple factors there for that Mets team and their pitching staff. Reed Garrett could be a reliever, which would maybe be dicey as far as longevity and health concerns. And Francisco Alvarez as well. He's hit by a pitch, broken hamate bone, out 6 to 8 weeks. He'll miss the beginning of the season, probably out to about mid-May. They are having some offensive concerns as well, the Mets. Luis Angel Acuna, Francisco Lindor, Jeff McNeil, all struggling this spring at the plate. Mark Vientos and Pete Alonso, some positive numbers to feel good about. Jesse Winker struggling. Juan Soto absolutely mashing, 289 average, 4 home run, 9 RBIs, 1.049 OPS. Silver Slugger favorite. Decent rotation, some bullpen pieces. Even if Ryan Stanek, Edwin Diaz are off this season, have an off season, they still have a pretty decent bullpen, fairly balanced offense. Even if their stars, Lonzo McNeil, have down years, even in their worst years, they drive in some runs. Expect them to finish better than Nationals. And I have them finishing as a wild card team this season in a weak National League. So, moving on, Phillies. Top 2 teams in National League East left, Phillies and Braves. Arguably the top 2 contenders to the Dodgers here in the National League. And the Phillies, Ranger Suarez, not to be on opening day roster. Taijuan Walker was announced to be the 5th starter the other day. They're being very vague about his health with Ranger Suarez. New Phillies, Jesus Luzardo, who came over from the Marlins, really struggling this spring ERA, 9.49 ERA, but with 16 strikeouts, 1.38 whip, could he potentially put together a nice season? Taijuan Walker as well, 7.41 ERA, only 8 strikeouts and 17 innings pitched, 1.82 whip. He will struggle for the Phillies as a starting pitcher. I think that's a certain statement that we can make. Christopher Sanchez, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, all strong springs. It's probably the best rotation in baseball if Ranger Suarez is healthy and doing well. But that's a concern right now. Zach Wheeler as well. He struggled to start the spring, but he's shaped into form. Look for him to be the stalwart pitcher he's always been. Loaded top half of the bullpen for the Phillies. Weak B side of the bullpen. Jordan Romano looking unhittable in 8.2 innings this spring. 8 strikeouts, 0.69 whip, scoreless. 9 appearances. Matt Strahm, he's struggling mildly this spring with an ERA of 32. He hurt his fingernail trying to pack a children's toy. Some ammo for Braves fans to trash for sure, and I hope they use it. So 0 ERA in 9 innings pitched, 20 strikeouts, 0.69 whip, unhittable spring so far for Jose Alvarado. Ryan Kirkling also looking stalwart for the Phillies this spring. 1.08 ERA, 8.1 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, 0.72 whip. Joe Ross, solid numbers. Jose Ruiz, Tanner Banks, Carlos Hernandez, all struggling. Underbelly of the Phillies bullpen. Those names you want to see when you play them. Their key offense additions from a few off seasons ago: Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos really struggling this spring. And as I've stated before, look like in the playoffs, they're looking like they're not a long-term solution for the Phillies winning a World Series or being a perennial contender. I believe that they're on downward trajectory in their careers, and Phillies would be smart to try to replace them any way they can. And, of course, bring in Max Kepler. That's doing exactly just that. And Brandon Marsh, he had a nice spring. They brought Brandon Marsh in as well after bringing in those two. And Max Kepler, Brandon Marsh, he is a pedestrian spring, but 822, decent OPS. Max Kepler mashing with that 375 average, 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, 1.175 OPS. Trey Chunger really struggling, looking like his signing was a mistake. 179 average, 1 home run, 5 RBI, 0.589 OPS, 39 at-bats, struggling to stay healthy, struggling to hit. The entire Phillies tenure has been defined by those things, as well as some timely defensive errors for Trey Turner in the playoffs. And Mundo Sosa, who's going to be a utility player for the Phillies this year, he out-hit Turner this spring with 292 average, 2 home runs, 11 RBIs, 833 OPS. Alec Boehm, I've always told Phillies fans that he's going to be a decent player. They've always been pessimistic on him. And this spring, he's had a nice spring with 370 average, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, 1.042 OPS. He's always been able to get hot at the plate. The question is, can he keep it up? Bryson Stott, Bryce Harper, nice spring trainings. JT Realmuto, he was hot again this spring, but has cooled off. Huge concern for the Phillies as they need JT Realmuto to be part of the order bat, producing a high level to be a championship caliber team. Phillies have one of not the best top 3 SPs in the game when healthy. Of course, Zach Wheeler, Ranger Suarez, and Aaron Nola. But of course, Ranger Suarez, he's had some injury concerns in the past in his career, and that is looking to flare up again as he's not supposed to be on opening day roster for Phillies. They have a nice offense with some clutch hitters like Bryce Harper. They'll win some close games, some tough games. Of course, in Citizens Bank Ballpark, their team is designed to win games at that ballpark. They'll probably be a wild card team. They'll probably win the wild card series, but I think when they get to the NLDS, I don't have them advancing this year, especially if Ranger Suarez is a question. He was a big piece to them advancing in both 2022 and 2023. As well, they don't have any organizational depth there at starting pitcher. If they have any key starting pitcher go down, Ranger Suarez is already down. If he's down for the whole season, they don't really have an answer for that. They tried to bring in Jesus Luzardo, and so far that's looking like that's not going to work out. Andrew Painter, Nick Abel, not worked out so far. Nick Abel struggling this spring. Andrew Painter, he's scheduled to come back later this year after getting surgery, I believe, on the UCL. So things are not all ideal in Phillies land. They got that Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber situation they need to fix. They don't have any starting pitching depth, and the backside of their bullpen is a mess. There's quite a few things for the Phillies to fix there, and quite a lot could potentially go wrong for this Phillies team. But said that last year, and of course they won the division. So I think this year things are a little bit more hairy, especially with Ranger Suarez being injured to start the year. So, ending this monstrous BOS Sports Podcast, episode 56, with my hometown Braves. And I've been very pessimistic and hard on this team all off season. I think anyone who's followed my posts would think it to be a shock and complete surprise that I not only have them winning the division, but also winning the World Series in my BOS Sports podcast official prediction graphic But looking at the rest of the league and what they have, the Braves just simply have the best rotation in baseball with Chris Sale, Reynaldo Lopez, Spencer Schwellenbach. They're adding A.J. Smith-Shawver to it. Grant Holmes is looking like an all-star caliber pitcher this spring. And last year he had nice numbers as well. So trending upward. And then after that, down in AAA, they have half a rotation with Hurston Waldrop, Bryce Elder, Drew Hackenberg, who for half the league, they would be starting for most of the teams. So the Braves are just loaded with starting pitching depth, and we haven't even gotten to names like Ian Mejia, who might be on the way as well. John Carlos there in AA for the Braves. So, of course, the big news the other day, they traded Ian Anderson for Jose Suarez. Jose Suarez, he really struggled in his opening inning versus the Cubs. And at the face value, the trade is definitely a bad trade, bad swap. But the Braves may owe the Angels one after the Rizal Iglesias trade. We've already given them Angel Perdomo. We gave them Ian Anderson. Hopefully they remember that the trade deadline, as I have the Angels struggling this year. And they could potentially trade us and help us out with a reliever at the deadline. And what is hopefully a Braves World Series year here, as I have predicted. This is bottom to best, the best rotation baseball. And Spencer Strider, of course, coming back as early as April. It'll be very tough to beat every day of the week. And potentially with a six-man rotation, if A.J. Smith-Shawver and Grant Holmes are pitching well, they're not going to want to take either of them out of the rotation. Forget putting Grant Holmes back in the bullpen. We tried yo-yoing Ray Kerr back and forth between those roles, and we saw how that worked out. He went down with Tommy John. So Grant Holmes transitioning from relief pitcher to starter. Last season, he had some nice successes. He's really looking stalwart this spring, all-star caliber. You have Chris Sale, Reynaldo Lopez, Spencer Strider, all of our other top guys. Now, maybe names like Chris Sale get selected to that all-star game aforementioned, but maybe a name like Grant Holmes, who's having a nice season, gets selected to replace him. Of course, that's not up to the players, but Spencer Schwellenbach is up there in that conversation as well as potential all-star starter. All-star this year. We could be an all-star starter. I think Spencer Schwellenbach, he'll have some struggles in his sophomore year. Definitely not a sophomore slump. Still think he'll be all-star caliber, but other struggles. Other than the struggles of Suarez today, the bullpen is shaping up to look very deep. Although they did not add any hot names to this bullpen. Aaron Bummer, he's had a scoreless spring, and he might be the high-leverage lefty answer for the Braves that we need. As well, Hector Neris, who signed late in spring, and he's scoreless so far. Daysbel Hernandez, he'll make the opening day roster. Aniel De Los Santos, he's come on for the Braves. After really struggling in 2025 with a 5.2 ERA, he's looking solid this spring with a 2.23 ERA and a 0.52 whip. 8 strikeouts and 7.2 innings. Will his success continue for the Braves? New Braves, Jurickson Profar has been raking the spring. Limited action. He was out with a contusion after a scary play diving for a ball early on in the spring. But he has a respectable 250 average coming into Tuesday's action. And supposedly even working with Chipper Jones. So both being switch hitters, I'm looking for a great year for Jurickson Profar. Much to the discredit of the Padres' hands. Matt Olson, he has 3 home runs this spring, though he's really struggling with his average. He's not missed many mistake pitches, but he's still working on working to refine his swing mechanics there probably, and is still struggling versus elite stuff. Michael Harris II, he's really come along after a slow start to spring. He now has a 3.27 average, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, 830 OPS, looking like all-star MVP potential caliber season for Michael Harris II. Of course, being in the same league as Shohei Ohtani, National League, a little bit uphill battle there for Michael Harris to win the MVP, but still reason to be hopeful. Austin Riley has shown flashes of being really sharp this spring, 267 spring training. He go uptick this spring as average. As well, he has an 851 OPS, solid spring numbers, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, bit of struggle with wrist situations. The whole team has looking for the Braves to figure out problems to their hitting with runners in scoring position well ahead of the playoffs. Hopefully they're a juggernaut by the end of the summer in that category. Tuesday's game, struggling versus the Cubs pitcher, Ben Brown, aforementioned. He had a nice first look at the Braves, and second time they got to him a bit and pulled Ben Brown to the Cubs. But he's trending upwards. He might have a nice start of the year, despite his spring training struggles there for the Cubs. New Braves, Brian De La Cruz. He had a nice home run today. Coming into Tuesday's game, he had an average of .295. Looking like he might be playing maybe a little bit more above Jared Kelenic, who's still struggling a little bit. He does have 2 home runs. Is hitting under the Mendoza line coming into Tuesday's game with 5 RBIs. Orlando Arcia really struggling this spring. I feel like he's come along a little bit better last couple weeks and looking okay. But Brian Snitker, he was quoted in today's talk that he stated flat out that Nick Allen might be a defensive substitute in later innings, which doesn't really make sense with Orlando Arcia being so stalwart defensively. Nick Allen is defensive substitute and supposed to be an upgrade and hitting better as well. Then you just start him, and there is no substitution. So that's an interesting thing to watch out for. Potentially Nick Allen might usurp Orlando Arcia's job at some point this Braves season. The biggest question, the Braves, are the offensive capabilities of the players. Alex Anthopoulos has signed long-term deals. Can Austin Riley turn around? Can he finally be the franchise's biggest contract player at the plate and be the 300-plus, 30-plus, 100-plus RBI, 30-plus home run kind of player that we think and expect him to be? I think he'll fall short a little bit of that, but be a stalwart force in playoffs. Matt Olson, can he have an all-star caliber year? Not looking very hopeful coming out of spring training. I think it's going to take a little while for Matt Olson to figure things out with Tim Hires this year. Can Ozzie Albies regain 2021 form at the plate? If he stays healthy, I'm looking for him to stay healthy the first month of the year, and of course the whole season. If he stays healthy for a long stretch of time, I think he'll be effective at the plate. Sean Murphy, same thing. Especially with the more playing time. Drake Baldwin, of course, he's going to start the year. He's probably going to be opening day starting catcher. He's looked really good this spring as Drake Baldwin. He's had fantastic numbers with runners in scoring position, so he might usurp Sean Murphy as well for that starting role. If he just lights a fire early on in April, it's going to be Drake Baldwin's season, and Sean Murphy will be the backup catcher, which is quite a luxury. I think that Sean Murphy is an absolute stalwart player and can potentially put things together at the plate. Might be a situation when Sean Murphy comes back, even if Drake Baldwin is hot, might want to give Sean Murphy some regular, consistent playing time at some point. Maybe Drake Baldwin, say if he starts hot and cools off a little bit, might have Sean Murphy come in just to play regularly, even though Drake Baldwin will have better number or might have better numbers at that point. So there are some questions with the bullpen, especially high leverage. Joe Jimenez, of course, is out for the season, but their Braves are loaded with prospects right now. I kind of like David McCabe. I don't want to trade him. Nacho Alvarez, not sure if he's a potential solution for the Braves. I think it's probably time to look at trading him for the Braves. As well, they're loaded with pitchers. Ian Mejia to Giancarlo Slera. Of course, you don't want to touch Cam Caminiti. He's going to be an absolute stud. Maybe even just a few years here for the Braves. So I have them winning the division. I have them winning National League. I have them winning the World Series this year. Ronald Acuna, he's coming back. Reports have been May, but I'm hoping that they be cautious with him. And with how this Braves starting rotation is looking, they have enough offense to have a chance to win every single night. Starting pitching is going to give them a lot of chances to win, opportunities to win. I don't think they need to rush Ronald Acuna Jr. back. In fact, I think they need to try to keep him out as long as it makes sense health-wise to do so. As my position on my favorite player in the game. And whenever he does come back, he's going to be a huge boost for this team. Potentially be kind of force that helps lead them to that World Series, aforementioned. So I'm going to do a quick look here before we go. My 2025 picks. AL East winner, Yankees. Then second place, Blue Jays, Red Sox, Orioles, Tampa Bay. I have Orioles having a tough year. Toronto having a resurgent year with the addition of Andres Jimenez, Anthony Santander, Max Scherzer, Bo Bichette appearing to have a resurgent season. I think they'll do well this year. Red Sox, I see as a wild card team as well in that division. Houston Astros, division winner. Texas Rangers, second place. I have the Royals making the wild card over the Rangers, although I'm starting to question that in my bracket already. I kind of like the Rangers as a playoff team, as a wild card team this year. Maybe even division winner. Seattle Mariners, third place. I don't think they have enough offense. They're with their starting pitching starting to struggle. Some of their starters starting to struggle. George Kirby injured. You have their bullpen really struggling this year. They were a huge part of Mariners' success last year and Mariners' success last couple years. I don't see them putting together a division winning nor a wild card winning series. I think they'll win a lot of games. Anaheim Angels I see as somewhat of a mess. And I know their fans are very positive about that team. They made a lot of neat additions. They got a lot of former Braves, Angel Perdomo, Ian Anderson, Travis d'Arnaud. They got the head Eli Young, their third base coach. So a lot of former Braves there. Central Division, going back to this bracket here. Cleveland Guardians, I think they'll repeat the division, just top to bottom. They have the most answers at every position. Kansas City, I have them second and going the wild card. I think that their offense will carry them in play, especially in the American League where there's so many question marks. Detroit Tigers, they of course have that stalwart rotation. Got a few bullpen pieces and some. Their offense is a big question, huge question mark. But I still see them finishing above the Twins. And then the White Sox do not cover today's podcast. Is not many bright Sox for them. Bright spots. AL East, I have the Braves winning with. I think they have the best rotation in baseball, best depth, and just enough offense to get done. Phillies got in second place this year. They won the division last year. Ranger Suarez is hurt. That's going to be big as well. Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos, they're really struggling. They might just be completely on that downward spiral that I thought they might be last season. Allergy season this time in land. So Mets third place. They got nice pitching. Their offense seems to be a big question mark, even after adding Juan Soto. Francisco Alvarez, he's injured to start year. Washington Nationals, they've got some nice pieces, nice rotation. Bullpen is terrible, so they're going to blow a lot of leads, and offense is a little bit of a challenge as well. Marlins, they're in distress. Dodgers, they're the Dodgers, first place. Even if their entire rotation goes down, I think the Dodgers will still win the division with how much offense they have. I mean, they actually clobbered the Cubs without Freddie Freeman or Mookie Betts, and as well Yoshino Yamamoto and Roki Sasaki. They struggled a little bit in their own ways. So the Giants have second. They have a nice rotation. They got a great bullpen. They've got some upshot. Mike Yastrzemski, hopefully having a nice year this year. I'm finishing second. Matt Chapman, MVP, caliber season. Of course, the Shohei Ohtani didn't exist. Diamondbacks. Of course, Corbin Burns. I had them finishing second just a couple weeks ago. Then Corbin Burns, he completely fell off. So some concerns. Their lineup is absolutely loaded. Every position, stalwart player offensively. Some questions there, and the back half of their bullpen, as well as the back half of the rotation. San Diego Padres, a couple weeks ago, they had questions everywhere. Their starting rotation was a mess with Dylan Cease and Michael King, they've been trending upwards. Yu Darvish trending upwards a bit as well. Their closer, terrible ERA right now, but overall deep bullpen. Their offense really struggling. So I'm thinking a fourth place finish for the Padres this year. I don't think they do as well this year. Rockies, locked for last place. It's a shame. If they had more starting pitcher, if they had a couple high leverage relievers, now the Rockies maybe making some noise in the NL West. Brewers, first place, NL Central. I think that's one of the most locks any of the divisions is Brewers winning the Central. Again, their offense is absolutely loaded. We always see them work magic with their pitching, even with Freddie Peralta having the ERA over 8. Something to watch out for. Freddie Peralta as well as Brandon Woodruff's return. But they have some pitching depth, names like Jose Quintana in the starting pitching rotation. I think they have enough offense to give them a chance almost every game. So, Reds as well, Central. The rest of the NL Central is just an absolute mess. You got Reds, Cardinals, Cubs, Pirates. Pirates have no offense. Cubs, they don't have any pitching. They got mostly no offense. They got a couple of nice players. Pete Armstrong, Michael Busch, Dansby Swanson. He drove in around today. But their starting pitching is a complete mess. They've already burned all their prospects trying to fix that last year. Relief, bullpen's a mess. I could see the Cubs easily finishing 5th in the division, worse than Pirates. Reds have a stalwart starting rotation. They've got a few offensive pieces. Of course, Elly De La Cruz, perennial All-Star candidate, Silver Slugger candidate there for the Reds, but not very deep. They got Edward Encarnacion Strand. Their bullpen is really struggling as well. So, Reds, they're not going to be winning the division, even with as good of a starting rotation as they have. It's not enough relief pitching, especially in that ballpark, Great American Small Park. Not enough offense as well for me to like the Reds to win that division. To me, the Brewers are almost a certain lock for the NL Central. All right, quick wrap here of the playoffs. We got to get ready for opening day. Braves, Padres, 4:10 p.m. Eastern. First pitch. It's going to be a monster start to the season. Hope everyone's enjoyed the episode. Learned something about every team coming in this 2025 season. There's a lot of information in this episode. So, we got wild card teams. Giants, Phillies, Mets. Dodgers beat Dodgers. I have Dodgers as the worst division winner this year. I think the NL West is just going to be packed, and I see the Brewers and Braves as 100-game winners. I think the winner of the NL is going to be under NL West, going to be under 100 games. The Dodgers maybe 99 or so. As their starting pitching, they're going to want to keep those starting pitchers healthy, as that's their key to repeating this year. Is having a few of those names: Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Roki Sasaki, Yoshino Yamamoto, healthy for the postseason. So I got Giants, Dodgers, wild card. Dodgers advance. Dodgers play Brewers, NLDS. Dodgers advance, NLCS. Other side of the bracket, Phillies, Mets. Phillies advance with those stalwart Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola. They probably sweep the Mets in that series if they match up. Phillies, Braves. Braves beat the Phillies finally without Ranger Suarez. He's always been the key. The Phillies beating the Braves. And then Braves, Dodgers. Dodgers just won't have the pitching by then. I think by that time, their pitching will be spent. And Braves advance. AL is just kind of a mess. I'm not as confident in my AL bracket. As mentioned, I kind of like the Rangers instead of the Royals to make the wild card, especially with the Royals starting pitching woes. Although the Royals have, of course, a stalwart offense, and I have them facing the Blue Jays wild card. Blue Jays advancing there with some names like Jose Barrios, maybe Max Scherzer, maybe Kevin Gausman starting there and winning 2 out of 3. Facing the Yankees. Yankees going to beat that fairly easily, as they did. And just too much offense on the Yankees to beat them in a short series. especially using your best pitchers in the wild card first couple games. So, other side of the bracket, Astros, Red Sox. On the wild card, I got the Astros as the weakest winner in the AL West. A highly contested division, although with no teams that are completely bona fide contenders. Red Sox advancing, facing the Guardians. Got the Sox being the Guardians. They're Red Sox, Yankees, ALCS. Red Sox, Braves, World Series. Braves win. So, been a very long edition of the BOS Sports Podcast. This is episode 56. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Be sure to stream previous episodes of the BOS Sports Podcast. Stream Bar Soap Music on Spotify. And be sure to follow on social media platforms. Announce when the next podcast will be. I think it'll be sometime later in the week, Friday or Saturday after opening day. A little bit more baseball coverage as well. We'll get back into Atlanta Hawks coverage here sometime next week or two. Maybe by this weekend, by Sunday or so. Be sure to follow for posts and try to keep update on that. Everyone have a great opening day of Major League Baseball. This has been BOS Sports Podcast.